What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining us on Tuesday night. It is episode 52 for your June 11th, 2024. I am your host, JD from New York, as always, joined by the one and only, now taking that nickname away from Ricochet because he's no longer with the WWE per se, the Solid Monster. We are the Tuesday Night Titans. Thank you guys so very much for joining us on your Tuesday nights. Jason, what's going on, brother?
Does that mean the trademark has been released?
For what? His name Ricochet?
Well, no, for the one and only.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Seems kind of broad, though. I mean, you would think that, would you even be able to trademark that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think it would be kind of silly anyway, going over to AEW and being the one and only. I mean,
yeah. I'll consult Jericho, though, because Jericho's, I think he's trademarking stuff every other day. He's coming up with new names. He's putting in those applications like they're going out of style. So maybe I'll ask him.
What are you talking about? You don't want to be a branch?
We're really going to start on a sour note here. Come on now.
No. We don't want no branches. We don't want no trees. Light the bitch on fire, man.
Yeah, I felt like beating myself over the head with a branch the other night, but that's beside the point.
Hey.
It's a good night, though. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because you posted it and I posted it on Twitter, and it was a little unnerving. I'm not going to lie, but seeing myself as Andre the Giant, seeing myself as Jason the Giant, and then you over here, the $1 million man from New York. It was quite sobering how perfect it was. You make a good $1 million man. Me as Andre, though, I don't know. That seems like the stuff of nightmares based on what I was looking at.
I mean, it's a flawless and seamless transition into that.
A little too. Yeah, but a little too flawless.
Now, you said something about your hair there being on Andre, saying that was your COVID haircut. I think I seen you maybe once during the COVID era before everything kind of went to shit. Yeah. And that wasn't a good time, huh?
No, because after 16 weeks of no haircut, I looked like I had a mop on my head. And I just got to a point where it's like, this is not going to get any better. And if I leave it like this, I'm just going to lose my mind. So I look back on some of those streams from 2020 and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, let's not go back to that. I think next time, if we ever have to go through something like that, I'm going to try to shave my own head. And then however it turns out, it turns out. But I don't know, did you have an issue like that? I mean, did yours grow long, or having somebody do it for you?
I mean, I'm intentionally growing it out long now. It's just I go through phases. But during the COVID era, I actually had some people close to me that were in that field of hairstyling and working at a salon. So I didn't have that issue during the COVID era.
Oh, fancy boy. All right. He goes to the salon. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, we're gonna get into a bunch of shit tonight. Again, guys, Jason and I really appreciate it because we were actually doing sound check before the show, and I told him it's getting increasingly difficult to come up with talking points. But I mean, I am a man of so many words, and so is Jason. So it's not gonna be difficult for us to fill 2 hours of time for you guys. But the news has significantly slowed down. And we appreciate you being here on a Tuesday night. I know we got some stiff competition with Cody making a big announcement, apparently, on NXT. I don't know what he's doing down there. But we will actually talk some NXT tonight, believe it or not. We both watched Battleground on Sunday night. Jason actually did something for his channel members, exclusively for them, for about a half an hour. I opted not to go live because I wasn't really enjoying the show halfway through. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Clash of the Castle, preview predictions, how we got here, how we think things are going to end up. Should be very interesting as far as the discussion goes. And we will talk some AEW as well. So some news and notes coming out of AEW going into Dynamite tomorrow night. And oh my goodness, I got to get it queued up here. This deserves.
Oh boy. Well, you know what though? Not only does Dwayne deserve it, but shout out to David as well. He was first up with a honey bomb before we even went live. But holy shit, Dwayne Jackson!
I love the energy, Dwayne Jackson, and my guy David Thiering. Let's start with David. He's got a $100 super chat 10 minutes before we actually went live. Thank you, David. He says, guys, if you discussed this already tonight, great. Was curious if you knew additional info regarding The Rock and had thoughts on if it alters WWE long-term creative to end 2024 into 25. Hopefully the injury isn't serious. Cheers. Hashtag TNT. David, we're actually going to get into that because that was actually a late addition to the news, and Jason was talking about that to me during the sound check. So we will definitely go over that. But thank you so much, brother. And Dwayne Jackson with a $300 bomb here on Tuesday night. What's up, JD and Solid Monster? With Ricochet possibly going to AEW, in my opinion, I think it's a bad move. He's best suited for TNA. They would know how to utilize him better than AEW. I don't trust Tony Khan. Ricochet can have the same matches with Speedball, Moose, etc. There is no room to grow in AEW or be a world champion. You know what, Dwayne? You're going to get another fucking round of applause for that one. That's a great comment. That's a great comment. You're not the only one that's feeling that way, Dwayne. I do think that Ricochet will probably stand out more in TNA, but we'll discuss it. Some people are saying that last night's angle was merely that, an angle for him to come back. I saw it a little bit different. I think there was a lot of subliminal messages behind that attack last night, Jason. I don't know what you took away from that at all, being that it was on the windshield of a car, real glass.
Yeah, we're going to get into the Ricochet stuff for sure. But to go back to Dwayne's, it's funny that we got a super chat from Dwayne because I want to talk about Dwayne. Before you even throw it to me, I was going to go to Dwayne first. So I think we should do that. I think we should talk about The Rock because this is something that you've gotten a few questions here in the chat about, and I got a couple of questions myself. So why don't we start with that? Why don't we start with The Rock's injury, if that's okay with you?
All right, let's kick us off. I usually kick it to you to start us off. You're starting off early with The Rock. Go ahead, let's talk about it.
I'm jumping the gun here. Now, you and I were talking about this during the sound check, but in the few minutes after that, I was looking up some more stuff about this. So in case people don't know what's going on, The Rock posted a video to his Instagram. And he has what looks like a giant golf ball, or, a golf ball sized lump in the bottom of his elbow. So he's been filming a movie called The Smashing Machine. It's about former UFC fighter Mark Kerr. Supposed to be filming through the beginning of August. And evidently in preparing for the movie and sparring and doing whatever he's been doing, he's developed what looks like bursitis in his elbow. And he was playing around with it, and he was, talking about how he's going to have an MRI done, but he has to have the elbow drained. So he can't have an MRI done until he gets the elbow drained, and then he's going to do that first. So I should preface this by saying that first, because we don't know for sure until he goes and has that done. But generally, if what he's dealing with is bursitis, we're not talking about something that's going to be a significant injury that's going to somehow curtail whatever future creative plans WWE may have had for him. Because I wasn't expecting him to be back on WWE television anytime soon. So I don't think that it would impact creative plans. But one thing I forgot to mention to you when we were talking before, I mentioned John Cena. And John Cena had a similar type of injury. If you remember when he defended the title against Daniel Bryan in that great match at SummerSlam, Cena went into that match as the champion, and he was hurt. He had his arm was all wrapped. Same thing. He had this giant ball in his elbow, and he worked the match that way, and then he went away. Well, what I had forgotten is that when he went in, he had his drain. He went in to have an MRI done. What they found is that the reason that it looked that way is because he had a partially torn triceps and didn't know it. And so after he dropped the title, he had to go have surgery. And normally that's a surgery that keeps you out for 4 to 6 months. Of course, it's John Cena, so he was back in 2 because he's a freak. But that's why I caution that we don't know anything until he goes in and has an MRI done. So it may not look like anything significant, but if he were to go in and find out that the reason it looks that way is because he tore something, that's a whole different story. And I joked with you. I said, this man, he was on the road to WrestleMania. He got through his match at WrestleMania, and now he gets hurt. So we have to just wait and see. I don't think it's anything significant, but you don't know until you go in and they take a look. And just remembering what Cena went through, I'm hoping that it's not a similar case where something is torn and we just don't know it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be terrible if it's a torn tricep and he's going to be out 6 months, upwards towards 6 months, because if that's the case, he needs to find out what that is immediately now, because by the time you start talking about 6 months, we're in Royal Rumble season, and then that's when WrestleMania season really starts to kick off. So, and I think you and I I think everybody else as well has kind of passed up on The Rock showing up at SummerSlam. It was once a huge talking point and being a logical destination for Rock and Cody, but it looks more and more likely that we get closer to SummerSlam that's not happening. People aren't talking about The Rock in that instance anymore, and it's more leaning towards Vegas next year for WrestleMania. So I truly hope that's not the case. I haven't watched the video that he posted on Instagram, but the still shot that I'm looking at on the wrestling website right now, wrestling.co or wrestlingnews.co, I see him holding his arm, his like where his tricep would be. So I hope that's not the case. I truly hope that's not the case.
Yeah, no, that would be terrible. Not only for, an eventual return to the ring and a program or a match with Cody, but again, he's still in the middle of filming. He's got another month and a half or so filming this movie. And so if he were to be seriously hurt and had to go under the knife, that could push back production of the movie. And then how does that push back his, future in WWE? That's one of the reasons why he ducked out after that last match he had back in 2013. He got seriously injured in that last match he had with John Cena. And at the time he was filming, I forgot exactly what movie it was, but if you think about it, it's reliant upon you. A lot of these movies, he's the lead, and they're very reliant upon him. If he gets hurt, it holds up the entire thing, and it could cost, the studio millions of dollars. It causes problems with other people, others, co-stars of his on set. So for a whole host of reasons, hopefully it's nothing serious. I watched the video. It was weird. He looked exhausted in the video. I mean, like, you could tell he just looked and sounded tired. But ever the entrepreneur that he is, he made sure at the very end of the video, he was talking about, I think there were like a bunch of pill bottles, like, for like the pain and everything. He goes, no. And he pulled out a bottle of Terramana and he poured himself some Terramana and he drank it and said, I'm already feeling better. So he made sure he got the plug in for his product. He got that in. Always thinking, this guy. But yeah, hopefully it turns out to be nothing serious, because if that's the case, that's a very bad thing.
Yeah, I see it here. He says he's talking about some past anti-inflammatories with injuries of the past, and one thing that worked best for him is his Terramana tequila, because he's always the businessman, is Dwayne. He ended the video here saying that he would be going to the gym, so it appears that the pain isn't too bad right now. He says the pain feels pretty good, and he's added that it feels like he has a cantaloupe in the bottom of his elbow. But I hope it's nothing. I hope it's nothing seriously. And if it is, I mean, I don't know what WWE is going to do, man. I can't sit here and think about him not being back on television after we got a taste of what he brings to the table, especially with Cody, man. We're banking on this shit, man. Like, you and I talked about this, I feel like it's almost every week with Cody Rhodes. Like, right now, it seems to be just them lazily floating down a fucking river, and they're just waiting for something to happen, man. It's like everything is just, all right, we'll just do this, and then we'll get to the next big thing. We'll wait it out. We're waiting for The Rock and Roman to get back. It feels like everything right now with Cody's filler. And The Rock is that big answer. It's like, if he's out, what the fuck are they going to do? What are they going to pivot to?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, and I made that comment the other day, that not only Rock, but Roman too. I mean, it just feels like, in a lot of ways, at the top of the card, especially on SmackDown, it feels like we're in a holding pattern and we're waiting, right? Every week, the fans are chanting, we want Roman. So they're waiting for Roman to come back. We know Rock will be back at some point. And it really does. It really does feel like, everything else that's going on right now, if it's not revolving around the bloodline, it's just sort of, we're in a holding pattern of sorts. Which is one of the reasons why I would love to see Cody and Randy Orton, mix it up and get that story going. I think that could be a potential SummerSlam match. But yeah, it's just, it feels like everything is centered around the bloodline and everything is centered around those two in particular. And it's almost as if, all right, well, we'll come up with things for him to do in the interim, but we're really just waiting on these two guys to come back. And if one of them gets hurt, it screws everything up, but you got to learn how to pivot because, I mean, look at all the injuries they've had to deal with recently, right? WWE and AEW. You have to be ready to pivot at a moment's notice and go to a plan B. So I'm sure they'll be able to come up with something. But yeah, I mean, they've invested so heavily in this creative for this. And we know that they're going to do it. We know Rock is not done. He's going to come back. He's going to be in the mix. Whether it's for WrestleMania 41 or not, we don't know. But I have a feeling that's a big part of why they ended up running Vegas next year. And if for whatever reason he couldn't be a part of that show, that would be a big blow.
Yeah, it's crazy, guys, how, at a moment's notice, no matter where he is or where anybody is, something can happen like that at any given moment. And the fact that Rock went in there for 45 minutes on night one of WrestleMania this year and came away unscathed. I mean,
He
looked fantastic. I was over the moon about how he worked. I thought that was the best he looked in fucking 20 years.
Well, I mean, it's also one of the only matches he's had in 20 years, if you think about it. But I didn't know what to expect, but just based on the last time we saw him in a full-time one-on-one match, my hopes weren't exactly high. It was smart, though, to have him in a tag match. I think that helped a lot. But he came out of that, unscathed, and I thought he looked great. Once he's in a one-on-one environment, that may be a different story. Yeah, we still haven't seen him in that one-on-one match. So he's got to make sure that he's in the best health he can be in. He talked about how he had this, I think, 10 or 12 week training camp to get himself in the right shape. So it's not just he shows up one week and just performs. He's got to physically be able to put the work in to get himself in that state. And it takes time, and look, you can be in the kind of shape that The Rock is in, or you can be in, a different kind of shape, but still the same age. It's harder to do the older you are. You're not going to be able to prepare and train in the same exact way. Your body's not going to recover as quickly as it used to. It would be a big blow for them. But that's all we know right now. And I think until he has that MRI, everyone is just guessing.
We will definitely keep an eye on that situation, guys. That was something that broke tonight. So we will see what happens with The Rock and what the recovery process is from this injury that he suffered on the set of his new movie. Jason, I'll pivot back to you. I know we started the show off with something that just recently happened tonight with The Rock. Where do you want to go? You want to talk about Clash of the Castle? You want to start with Monday Night Raw? What do you want to?
I think we should start with the man of the hour. I think we should talk about Ricochet.
Okay, let's talk about Ricochet. Ricochet was on Monday Night Raw last night, and first of all, I want to preface this by saying Bron Breakker and Ilya Dragunov last night on Monday Night Raw was a pay-per-view level match on Monday Night Raw. Absolutely fantastic stuff. The future is in the right hands there, and you can see why WWE is incredibly high, not only on Dragunov, but on Bron Breakker. And I'm so glad that they're actually pushing him to the limit instead of doing the generic, coming out there, showing his speed and athleticism and spearing everybody left and right. Bron Breakker was so much more than that. I didn't realize who the fuck he was when I first saw him on that debut episode of 2.0, but the more we got to watch him and see him grow, Jason, it's been a beautiful thing. So I'll start with that. Bron Breakker and the creative for Bron Breakker on WWE television right now, this is according to WrestleVotes. The latest creative plans on Bron Breakker are, according to WrestleVotes, is he will be a major focus on Monday Night Raw going forward, especially ahead of the show's move to Netflix in January 2025. The same individual added with his age, speed, look, and pedigree. This rare combination of talent isn't to be overlooked. So Bron Breakker right now obviously is going to be factoring into major WWE plans going into the future.
As you should.
Where are you feeling right now? What are you feeling about Bron Breakker, and how pleased are you with his progress 2 months after his call-up from NXT to Monday Night Raw?
Very pleased. One of the things I was hoping for is that when he got the full-time call-up to the main roster, they would keep him heel. Because if you remember, I think he was in the Royal Rumble this year, and even in the interview after the Rumble, I got the impression that maybe he was going to be called up as a babyface, and I wasn't really a big fan of that. He really took to that role in NXT, and even the Wolf Dogs team with him and Baron Corbin, they ended up gelling very well together, and they had a good thing going down there. So I like the fact that they called him up as a heel. I like the fact that you mentioned before, you're happy that they didn't just call him up and have him spearing people. I don't see anything wrong with that, and he's been doing a lot of that anyway in these matches. And it gets a big reaction every time he does, because it looks like, even with Dragunov last night, there were a couple of those spears where it looked like he just ripped the guy in half.
It looks like a Mortal Kombat fatality, yes.
It really does. But think about the way that a guy like Goldberg, got over, or Rhino in the original ECW. It's that speed, it's that brute force, it's the spear, and certain people, the way that they can hit that move, it looks absolutely devastating. And then you have other people who hit it and it looks like they're hugging you. It really depends on the person who's doing it. And I think that Bron Breakker, honestly, since Goldberg or Rhino, is the one who has really taken that move and made it his own and made it look as devastating as probably either of those two guys. I mean, there's been so many people who have used that move in the 20 years or 25 years since. Braun, he just owns it. It fits him to a T. So I've been very impressed with how they've handled him so far. And Adam Pearce can't control him. They're kind of working Adam Pearce into his story as well. So I think they've nailed it. I think Triple H has nailed it with him so far. And, Dragunov, look, I know some people are upset that Dragunov lost again last night. This is like his second match that he's lost. It doesn't bother me because I like the way that he's been positioned so far on TV. He's been positioned as somebody who I think it feels or starting to feel important. And so he's not going to win every single match. I think, frankly, it's more important that Bron Breakker be protected right now in that way. I wouldn't be beating him. But Dragunov, I think, has also been handled pretty well so far. You could see the future of that brand is very bright, with those talents being focused on in that way. Somebody had to win last night. Somebody had to lose. So that didn't bother me. But then we get to Ricochet and what happened at the end of that match.
Yeah, Ricochet came out of nowhere, seemingly came from the crowd after Dragunov was leaning up against the barricade near the timekeeper's area. Bron Breakker was about to absolutely decimate Dragunov last night. Ricochet saved the day and saved Dragunov from impending doom. So that was that. And then we get to later on in the show where Bron Breakker, who was completely obsessed with Ricochet after what he did to stop him and his attack on Dragunov, attacked Ricochet in the back. First, he speared Dragunov over a bunch of production crates, and then he takes Ricochet and beats the shit out of Ricochet and lawn darts him into one of the production trucks backstage in the parking lot, like Kevin Nash did to Rey Mysterio all those years ago on WCW Nitro. And then we get the moment that seemingly...
But you're underselling it here. So not only you're underselling it here, you're just kind of glossing over it. The fact that he lawn darted him into the side of this truck, but that wasn't even the worst of it. He lawn darts him into it, and then he had a nice drop before he hit the pavement, and you heard a thud when he landed on the concrete. That sounded even worse than I think him lawn darting him into the side of the truck. And then came the big spot.
Oh, that's typical Ricochet. Ricochet is going to put somebody over in a big way, no matter what. So kudos to him for that. And then the spot came where he was standing on the steps of this production truck, and he had him up in a power slam position, and he slams him right on the front end of a windshield of a car. And you hear the murmurs online, oh, was it real glass? Ha, ha, ha. And Ricochet was just decimated. It leads to him being lifted up on a gurney into the ambulance. Bron Breakker's damage was done. They made a big stink about Adam Pearce not being there. That was definitely highlighted last night. Otherwise, Breakker might not would have. He probably wouldn't have done what he did last night if Adam Pearce was there. But the cat's away, the mice will play. And then he gets loaded into the ambulance, and in the ambulance goes Samantha Irving, his fiance. So Ricochet, the door's closed, and the ambulance drives away, and that seemingly, reportedly, is the end of Ricochet's run in WWE. Now, before we get into the update on Ricochet and what was said about him being prepared to leave the company, Jason, there was a report from Meltzer today. And again, Meltzer's been very cold this year. He's been on some things, but very cold this year.
He's on something, all right.
Definitely. He did say that the way it came off to him was the start of an angle where he would come back and get a match with Breakker and get his revenge on Breakker. Do you see that at all, or are you in the camp of like that was a write-off and they wrote him off of TV completely?
No, I mean, it definitely felt to me like a write-off, but I would put a little asterisk next to it because his contract is not up supposedly until next month. There is still time potentially for them to work out a deal, like a new deal. That seems very unlikely, but they do still have him under contract for at least several more weeks. And Mike Johnson had something about this on PW Insider earlier. He said the same thing, that there have been murmurs about the possibility that they could bring him back in these next few weeks, and maybe they blow it off in a match, and they do Breakker and Ricochet, and then Breakker gets a win over him, and then they can write him off in that way. I don't think we can completely dismiss that as long as they have him, they own him for at least a few more weeks. And so if they want him back, they'll bring him back. It felt to me like a write-off, though. everything about that angle last night felt to me like this is his send off. And how can we send him off in a way that benefits us? Some people are going to look at that and go, well, look at the way they handled Ricochet. They didn't give him a proper send off. I thought what they did last night was fantastic. And if that's the last appearance that Ricochet makes for the time being in WWE, I think he went out with a bang. I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with it. You want to make an impact. And I could maybe see Ricochet looking at it the same way. Like, all right, if this is going to be my last night, other than me going out there, having a match and getting jobbed out, like, all right, how can we make this impactful, right? You're pushing this Bron Breakker guy. You're trying to get him over as a monster. Ricochet is fantastic at selling. I mean, like, he was moaning, like he was making these moaning noises last night, like he couldn't breathe. He was really putting it over in a big way. So how can we do this? All right, well, why don't we have him get lawn darted into the side of a truck, and then we'll have him get power slammed onto a windshield, and then we'll have his fiance, who I thought, credit to her, she sold it great. She was getting all emotional. She had tears in her eyes. I love the fact that they included her in the angle. And then she goes off in the ambulance with him, and it looks like this guy, I mean, he gave the thumbs up and everything, but they made it like this guy's, near death. He might not make it. And then off he went in the ambulance. If you're going to go out, that's how you go out. So I love the angle. And of course, it gets Bron Breakker over as an even bigger monster than he was coming into the night last night. Think about how weird it would have been if you would have had Samantha Irvin not go to the back to go check on him. And then the very next segment, she's just in the ring, making the ring announcement for the next match with a big smile on her face. Like, it would have been completely ridiculous. Yeah. So they needed her to be involved in that. I thought they pulled it off, brilliantly. It's exactly the sort of thing that I would have done, I think, in the same situation. And they played to Ricochet's strengths. I didn't look at it as a burial in the way that some people may have. He's on his way out. Bron Breakker is on his way up. So how can we do something to benefit him? They were feuding, right? He's going to go over in that feud. And it felt like exactly what you would do if you were, blowing off a big program on TV. Now,
I do think that there is a chance that he could come back. Like Jason said, he still has several more weeks under a WWE contract. I would love to see another match. And I think Ricochet respects Triple H enough, and Triple H respects Ricochet enough to a point where the likelihood of something like that happening is very high. But Mike Johnson said that the high likelihood of Ricochet leaving the company is that, and they expect him to land in AEW. Now, creative measures were taking place last night on Monday Night Raw to write Ricochet off TV, and he did drop the WWE Speed Championship to Andrade. I don't know what that says about Andrade. That's a whole nother discussion, because people think that the current administration is dropping the ball with him as well. It's seemingly looking like he's not on TV at all in anything major. However, Mike Johnson was told that WWE Creative, there have been pitches to take Ricochet off TV before Monday. They acted on that on Monday. And AEW staff and talent backstage this past week were talking about the possibility of him coming in, joining the company. And they have not heard anything outside of that. So that's all we know right now. After last night and AEW obviously being very interested, that's all we know. We don't know where he's going to end up. We don't know when he's going to show up. We don't know how he's going to be used if he goes over to AEW. It's all hearsay right now. But I think the big topic of discussion, Jason, between you, me, and a lot of other people discussing this topic was, why did Ricochet, I don't want to say fail in WWE. I think Ricochet had an admirable run in WWE, but obviously people are going to be looking at him as, oh man, he should have been so much more. Coming out of Black and Gold, he still had that essence about him. Coming off from the Indies, Triple H used him brilliantly on Black and Gold. He transitioned to the main roster. Vince was in charge, obviously, and Vince looked at him as nothing more than a good hand who does flashy moves, pops the crowd, pops the kids. He's like a modern-day superhero brought to life. That's what Vince saw in Ricochet. He won a United States Championship. He won an Intercontinental Championship. He had some viral moments with Logan Paul. Couple of big spots in ladder matches here and there, Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble. But in my honest opinion, the reason that Ricochet did not become more in WWE is because of the Vince McMahon era, of the Vince McMahon administration wasting his time. And the time wasted for Ricochet to move on through that administration and sit right now where he is with the Paul Levesque era, I feel like the WWE passed him by. It was big when Ricochet came in, and now all that that talent that passed them by, Bron Breakker, Carmelo Hayes, Tiffany Stratton, Ilya Dragunov, so on and so forth, that were being developed in the NXT system while Ricochet was wasting his time. That's where the WWE priority is right now. Their priority is not in someone like Ricochet. So for the fact that he's getting out at 35 years old, he sees this. He's not stupid. He knows that he's worth so much more. He knows that he can command any type of money he wants. He's going to go out there and make a major name for himself. And I think it's actually refreshing to leave the WWE and say, well, you guys didn't see this in me, but I certainly do, and I'm going to prove you fucking wrong. That's why he's leaving the company. I think time passed him by.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of Dolph Ziggler, and he talked about the fact that he wanted out. You know, he just got to a point where he wanted to leave and felt that he had to leave the company. And he was there for a lot longer than Ricochet was. I mean, you know, Ziggler was there for years and years and years. And at different moments, it always felt like he might be about to break out, and then they would kind of pull back, or he would get hurt. There was always some reason that they just felt gun shy about kind of pushing him to that next level. And after a while, what ends up happening is when you're around like him or Natty, and you're there for 15 years, everybody has seen you. And everybody has seen you in the ring with everybody else on the roster, probably multiple times over. And you are cemented at a certain level in the company. It's very, very hard at that point to break out of that and break through. And I do think, I agree with you in this way, that I think Ricochet was definitely affected by that. But I think you made a comment also, and I disagree with this, because it sounded to me, now I know there's a lot to like about what Triple H is doing right now with the product and some of the people that he's pushing, and WWE is definitely creatively, certainly, in a much better position now than they were when Vince McMahon was still in charge. I don't think anybody can debate that, and I will certainly debate you on that if you feel otherwise, because you and I both, we sat through the product and we know that it was time for him to go a long time ago. But you can't let Triple H off the hook. Fact is, whether you think that Triple H, you know, he took the book in 2022 or he took the book in 2023, he was featuring Ricochet more consistently on television. But if he saw something in Ricochet at a level higher than he has been positioned in, then Ricochet would have had a solid story for himself long before the stuff that he's been doing in the last few weeks with Ilya Dragunov and Bron Breakker. We've seen Ricochet spotlighted on TV now for many months against Ivar and against Gable and just against different people on the roster. And he would pick up a win here and there. But there was no real push behind him. And that's on Paul Levesque. If Paul Levesque said, you know what, we have not been doing what we should be doing with this man. This man is a special talent. I saw it back then in 2018, 2019, and we should be doing more with him, a lot more with him. He's had enough time to do more with Ricochet. Did Ricochet have a match at WrestleMania this year? Was he involved in anything significant going into WrestleMania? Not that I can recall.
No. Or
even at the beginning of the year? No. So, yes, certainly he was damaged, I think, by his positioning during the Vince McMahon era. But Paul Levesque can't be let off the hook for that. He also bears some of the responsibility in why Ricochet is leaving. If Ricochet felt like, you know what, it's the dawning of a new day. We just had Randy Orton the other day who spoke to Bill Apter. Actually, he spoke to him last month, but they just posted the video last week. And his father was being inducted into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, and Bill Apter was talking to him. And Randy Orton, this is Randy Orton, okay, one of the biggest names in WWE in the last 20 years. And he actually said the quiet part out loud. He said, I'm glad he's gone, about Vince McMahon. And he was talking about other things, for other reasons. He's happy he's not there anymore, right? If you have someone like a Ricochet who thinks that, okay, this is a new era, like they keep telling us, and it's only going to be upward now from here. I feel like I've been held down at this level, but I want to be here. And now under Triple H, now I'm going to have my chance. Then he wouldn't be leaving. But he's leaving because he's obviously not satisfied. He's not creatively fulfilled. And that's working for Paul Levesque. So we can talk about Vince McMahon until we turn blue in the face, but you can't let Triple H off the hook. He could have done things to keep Ricochet. He did not. And that is part of the reason why Ricochet is now leaving the company.
I do agree with you in a sense of, if Triple H wanted more out of Ricochet, he's certainly the man to make that happen. And I really don't understand why we are in a position right now that we're in with Ricochet leaving the company, because if that was the case, then he should be featured on Monday Night Raw. A lot of people have made the correlations to Will Ospreay. Like WWE had their version of Will Ospreay in Ricochet. Now, I get the similarities. I think one is better than the other. Obviously, I'm more pro Will Ospreay than I am Ricochet, but I take nothing away from the talent of both men. They're both absolutely phenomenal at what they do. Triple H wanted that in Ricochet. He could have basically had his own version of what AEW is doing with Will Ospreay over on Dynamite. But that's not the case right now. So, well, we don't really know. So my question to you is, Jason, is this a case of Ricochet just really putting his foot down saying, thank you for the time, I'm going to go do this? Or is it that WWE wanted to keep him and opted to let him go for other variables? And I mean that by, well, they signed Chad Gable, they signed Becky Lynch, they signed Drew McIntyre, and they put big money towards those people. Is it a case of maybe Ricochet asking for too much money and WWE basically saying, listen, we can't pay you what you want. It's probably in your best interest to go find that money elsewhere. Is it a case of they don't have the negotiation tactic to use there with him?
Well, first of all, they did not sign Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, but she will be signed eventually.
I'm sure she will, but she's a free agent right now. Technically, she can do and go, wherever and whatever she pleases. The answer is we don't know until Ricochet does an interview and tells us. We're talking about all of the possibilities here, but at the end of the day, we don't know until we hear it from him himself. So you have to preface this by saying that. Was money the determinant issue here? Was it creative? Did he just want to go work with Will Ospreay and some other people? Maybe he has a checklist like Cody did when he was still on the Indies. Remember he had that list? And all the different names he had on that list, the people he wanted to work with and things he wanted to do, he had his own wish list. Maybe Ricochet has a wish list and he says, man, I'm 35. If I sign another contract now, I'll probably be 40 or almost 40, and maybe I won't have the chance to do all these things. We just don't know. I think it might have been a combination of a bunch of those things. I would think the WWE was willing to pay him, enough to make him happy, but we don't know what Tony Khan might be offering him, or if Tony Khan has even made. Technically, Tony Khan can't offer him anything because that would be tampering. He's still under contract, so there's a lot we don't know. It all comes down to what is the most important thing to Ricochet. Does he want to be in a place where he has the freedom to work his own way and not feel restricted in what he can do? I feel like the Ricochet that we have been seeing now for years is maybe Ricochet at 50 or 60% of physically what he can do in the ring. If you saw Ricochet before he came to WWE, you know what he can do. Okay, and I know he was younger then, but I'm sure he can still work that same style. In WWE, either he's holding back or there were just certain things they didn't want him doing. Maybe he just wants the freedom to go and work wherever he wants. Maybe he wants to work indies. Maybe he'll do TNA. Maybe he'll do New Japan. Maybe he'll do AEW. Maybe he'll do all of the above. And he'll be able to work the way that he wants to work. Freedom is a very liberating thing. Freedom is not something you have a lot of in WWE. They control many different aspects of your life and your career and what you can and cannot do. Even now. Okay, maybe a little less so now. Maybe things are a little looser now, but they control a lot of things about you. Maybe he just wants to get out of the system and have the freedom to do what he wants. I actually think that Ricochet going back for a run in New Japan would be a lot of fun. He worked for New Japan previously. Right now, they could use somebody like him because they've lost a lot of people. They lost Will Ospreay to Tony Khan. They lost Jay White to Tony Khan. They lost Okada. They lost Tama Tonga. We're going to talk about Hikuleo. I know he's not, as high up, on the list there, but they've lost a lot of people. This may be a good moment for him to kind of slide in there and make a big splash. And they already have a working relationship with AEW. Maybe he works with AEW but doesn't sign a contract with them. There's TNA. That's where Ziggler went. Maybe he goes there. Mustafa Ali went there. He's the X Division champion, right? Nick Nemeth is going to be TNA World Heavyweight Champion at some point. Ricochet could easily go there and dominate. You don't think Ricochet wouldn't love to go there and work with Ali again and work with Ziggler and work with a lot of the other TNA talent? We don't know exactly where he's going to end up. I do think he will be working in AEW very soon. Maybe we see him at Wembley. Maybe he's going to be at Wembley Stadium this year. But I would love to see the Ricochet World Tour where he just goes everywhere. He goes, here and internationally, and he's going to kill it, and he's going to clean up, and he's probably going to be a lot happier. And I think that's a big part of why he's leaving.
Yeah, I would go the Ali route if I'm him. I think Ali's fucking killing it right now everywhere. I think if he's tied down to specifically AEW, I think that's a mistake. Just me speaking on what I've seen personally. I've seen some people in the chat before we started the stream. I don't trust Tony Khan. That's the way I feel when it comes to Ricochet. I don't really feel like with Ricochet, if he goes there, it's going to remain special past 2, 3, 4 matches. I mean, they'll get those matches out of the way, and then he'll settle into a mid-card role, and he'll feel like everybody else. And we know that he's so much more than that, and we're going to be right back to stage one with the way he was feeling in WWE. I think, like Jason said, him going around the world and working TNA, working New Japan, working the Indies, showing everybody what WWE held down, because he was operating at 50, 60%. They didn't need him to do all that crazy shit. He wants to reignite that with the wrestling fan. He wants to reaffirm everybody, this is who Ricochet is. A lot of the industry has also passed him by, like I said, with the WWE comment I made earlier, that the WWE ecosystem passed him by. The whole fucking wrestling world passed him by. Everybody's like, they're faster, they're bigger, they're fucking crazier. It's like Ricochet's been tied down underneath the handcuffs for fucking 5 years. It's like, look, bro, I want to break out here, man. Let me do my thing.
We're gonna have Will Ospreay tomorrow night wrestling Rey Fénix. I mean, what kind of match do you think that's gonna look like? Right?
Somebody's gonna break a fucking leg, really?
Well, hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
But that style, like, it's gonna be insanity, and I think Ricochet would fit in very well there. And I think people do need to temper their expectations that if he was to go to AEW, I mean, I agree, he'll make a big splash at first. He'll get that match with Ospreay and some other big matches. Ultimately, I don't see his position there being all that different, than what it was in WWE. And I said this when this rumor first started going around. And I was talking about his run, looking back at his run so far in WWE, especially under Vince. One of the things I think that really hurt him is he was never a great promo. That's going to mean more in WWE than it will mean in a lot of other places. I'm not saying he can't hold a microphone and he can't, address the audience, but it wasn't his strong suit. What makes Ricochet Ricochet? Was Ricochet known like an MJF for his great promo ability? No, you take the microphone away from him and just let him go out there and do what he does. That's where his strength is. So I think anywhere he goes, whether it's TNA, AEW, New Japan, there's not going to be as much of a focus on that as traditionally there has been in WWE, where you got to be able, your character and your verbal skills and your presentation is so important. Again, wherever he goes outside of that system, it's going to play to his strengths. I think he's going to kill it wherever he goes. If he goes to AEW, he's going to kill it there for a while. He'll settle in, to a certain position on the roster, and he may be happy there. You talk about how he's going to be locked in. I don't see it that way. If he goes to AEW, he's going to have the freedom to work elsewhere. So he's not locked in. He may be locked into a certain spot, and maybe he wants to be, or the fans want him to be higher up on the card. Realistically, though, what do you want from him? I mean, Ricochet is not going to go to AEW and become AEW World Champion. There's a lot of people who are already ahead of him there who they have their next 18 months set, as far as I'm concerned. As far as the people that are up, in that main event scene competing for that title, I don't see Ricochet being part of that group. So, like, what as a fan do you want out of this man if he was to go work for that company? What would make people happy? Where they look at him, and let's say he goes there in 6 months or a year, and they say, man, that was a great decision that Ricochet made that he went to AEW. I mean, is it a case where unless he's the world champion, he's a failure? Like, how are we judging this? How are people looking at this and judging this ultimately if that's where he lands? I think people need to just pump the brakes a little bit and just be realistic about this.
I think the realization is we're going to get great matches out of it, and that's the extent of it.
Right. And that may be something he's perfectly content with. He just wants to go and have great matches, because that's what people remember him having, are these just great, spectacular matches with these crazy, insane moves that at the time very few people were doing. I mean, really, it was him, Ospreay, and Pac.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys were just killing it. And maybe he's perfectly content to do that. But I was wondering that the other day. I was thinking about that. Like, okay, we don't know where he's going to land, but when he does settle in, and if he goes to AEW, how are people going to judge his success? And if you're only going to judge his success based upon how many world titles he wins, then yes, he will probably be a failure. But I also think you're looking at it and judging it just the totally wrong way. You know, I think he'll be an asset to whatever company he goes to. He's one of those guys that if you're flipping the channel and you come across him and he's having a Ricochet match, I think you would stop and go, holy shit. Like, what the hell's that? You know, this guy's nuts. He's that kind of like show-stopping performer. And he's going to be able to go out and do that. But I don't think him going to AEW and not winning the world title means that he's buried or anything like that. So
no,
you know,
I don't see him winning the world title ever.
No. And again, he doesn't have to.
And he fits that ecosystem a lot better than the ecosystem in WWE because, like you said, he's not going to be reliant, or they're not going to be reliant on him to cut a fucking MJF promo or John Moxley promo. He's not about that. He's about, you know, let me get in the ring and show you what I could do, and we know what he can do. The thing with that is it's going to create a discussion online, and I know they're the minority. You know, he's a turncoat. He left WWE. But how many of you actually gave a shit? How many of you people actually gave a shit about Ricochet while he was even in the WWE for the fact that you're calling him a turncoat because he joined AEW? Who gives a shit? Just let him go and do what he wants to do.
Yeah, I don't pay much attention. That's that tribalistic bullshit to me. You always have that with people. It's like us against them. I don't take any of those. Oh, he's wrestling seriously. In front of 1,500 people.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
yeah,
great.
I mean, yeah, I don't take any of those people seriously. You know, I mean, it's the same argument all the time. They need new material. You know, it's the same thing. We hear it all the time. Whoever it is, whether it's Ricochet or somebody else, I just sort of tune it out because it's not even worth bringing up or getting into.
And that's the way it should be. Like you said before, you mentioned Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler's 43 years old. 43 years old, and he signed his last time, I believe it was for 5 years with WWE. He stayed another 5 years with WWE, and then he opted to leave just this past where he got released. They let him go at this age, and now he's got a new lease on life. Ricochet is opting to walk away on his own at 35. He's not going into his 40s saying, you know what, man, I think it's time I'm going to go out there and kind of rekindle my love for the indies again. It's great that he's getting out now because he's so young and he's got the whole fucking world in front of him. So kudos to him, man. We as fans should be proud and on his side that he's actually taking a stand and betting on himself, because I've told my story online, my personal story with everybody. I had shit jobs, and before I was a content creator, I said, fuck this shit. I'm not working Starbucks or retail anymore. I'm going to do the channel. I made it a full-time thing. I bet on myself. He's doing the same thing. Mercedes did the same thing. She left WWE. I will stand behind that woman for making that decision until she retires. That is a great thing to see, and Ricochet's doing the same thing. We should all celebrate along with him. That's just the way that I see it.
Yeah, and I brought up R-Truth on my show the other day because he was on, and I couldn't find the video, but I know there were some news reports about it, that he, I guess, jumped on his TikTok the other day, last week, and asked the fans something about, I forgot the question he asked them, but somebody put the question back to him if he had any regrets in wrestling. And he made a comment to the effect that he was mad at himself because he didn't envision being in the spot when he was younger. He didn't envision being in the spot that he's in now, like doing what he's doing. Not that he hasn't made a lot of money and been successful, but just he's mad at himself because he felt like he could have been more and done more. And R-Truth is either 50 or in his early 50s, and he doesn't look it, but he's 50. And when you get to that point, you kind of look back on your career and go, yeah, I regret this, or that I did this, or I didn't do that. Ricochet's a lot younger than that. And Ricochet is in a position now where if he's not happy where he is and doing what he's doing, he doesn't need to end up that way, where he keeps signing the contracts and just making the money. And then 10 years from now, when he's 45, he looks back and goes, shit, man, I wish I didn't sign that deal. I wish I would have left when I had the chance. And, he's pissed that he didn't do it, because it sucks to go through your life or your career having regrets like that. He's still young enough where he doesn't have to do that. He can make the call himself. You know what? I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to take my services elsewhere. I think it's time. There are just some things on my, bucket list that I still want to do. And that way he doesn't have to look back and have any regrets about a decision that he made. So good for him. I'm happy for him. And I wish him all the success. I'll be tuned in wherever he goes. And hey, if he hits the indie scene, I know we would love to have him, back in HOG, first ever House of Glory World Champion.
Bring him in. He'll tear that NYC arena down.
First ever.
I can't wait to see what he does. I'll be watching. And like Tony Khan said this past week, he books for the sickos. So, give us the sick shit, Tony. Seriously, let's bring in Ricochet and let's see what he could do.
He took a lot of crap for that tweet. I think there were so many people. It actually makes me sad who didn't get the reference that
Tommy Boy is one of my favorite movies of all time, man.
It's a fantastic movie. Fat guy in a little coat.
I loved Black Sheep too with him and David Spade.
Well, Black Sheep is almost like it's the same movie. It's just different title basically, different premise, but I still sometimes I'll joke with my brother. I'll start singing "Fat Guy in a Little Coat," and it's just great. It's just great. What a great movie. I forget sometimes that Tony Khan he's part of our generation. He's of that same age. He came up watching the same movies and stuff, and yeah, it's a great movie.
So we'll see what happens with Ricochet, guys. We got a few weeks still to go, and if he ends up in AEW, obviously we will all be watching and talking about it for sure. Chad Gable, let's move over to Chad Gable. Apparently there's a big update on Mr. Gable, who is challenging Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship this Saturday at Clash at the Castle. We will get into the predictions in a bit. Chad Gable, according to Fightful Select, they've learned recently that Gable's contract was originally set to expire on June 7th. However, by June 3rd and Monday Night Raw, he was already announced for Clash at the Castle. So a lot of people were speculating that he had re-signed with the company because they booked the match while this news was happening. So they haven't confirmed that he signed the contract, but they have inquired with WWE officially. There have been other performers who saw their deals come up recently, have claimed to other companies that they've been on a per-appearance basis, but we've heard nothing of Gable being that person. However, sources within both WWE and AEW assume he's re-signed, or at the very least remaining with the company. There was talent pushing for him to join AEW, but we're told that he was being heavily discussed backstage as of this week within All Elite Wrestling. If Gable has re-signed, Jason, I think that's the smartest decision for him. And I honestly, it's a long time coming for us fans of Chad Gable who've seen him come up with American Alpha and then go on through various other tag team partners to do a singles thing and then unbelievably get turned into Shorty G and then somehow come out of the other side and be as great as he is right now to where it's a point on the show where he is legitimately the best thing on the show. Him, Bron Breakker, the whole storyline with Sami Zayn is the best thing on the show, in the absence of CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, by the way. But Gable staying with the company, man, this is the best decision for him, and that Intercontinental Championship needs to be on him, I hope by Saturday, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love it if it was on him on Saturday. I have a different way to go with predictions for that as far as when he may get belted. I think it's great news if he is sticking around. I think it's great for WWE. I think it's great for the fans and the people who have been invested in this Alpha Academy story, which is such a basic story, but they've done a very good job. Everybody involved has done a very good job with it. I did feel like if it hit me watching it on Monday last night, that we're starting to kind of hit a wall. Like we've had a lot of the same types of segments. So they're going to have to, pull the trigger on this Otis moment. And I think we probably get that moment on Saturday where he finally just literally pushes back on Chad Gable. But just look at the reaction to Otis every week on TV and even the sympathy that Maxine and Tozawa are getting. Now, I do think that when this story is done, I don't know what role they have on the show, if we're being honest. I mean, especially Maxine and Tozawa. This may be as good as it gets for them as far as, this story that, especially Tozawa, he's also been there now for a while. I kind of feel like if they had other more important plans for him, they would have used him in that way. And this may be kind of his ceiling there. But the Gable stuff has been great. I'm looking forward to him and the Creeds, hopefully, linking up. And we get a new trio on Monday Night Raw. I was watching last night the tag team title match, Miz Truth again, or Awesome Truth, Miz and R-Truth against AOP, and I found myself pulling for AOP to win the titles. What is wrong with me? that I am sitting here begging for AOP to win the World Tag Team title.
Hey man, listen. That's no disrespect towards R-Truth because he's just great. But I mean, that tag team, like Jason's alluding to, that tag team division is so much worse with that fucking shit on television. Man, just get the belts off of them already, please. It was a great moment at WrestleMania, but we've seen enough.
That's what I wanted. I wanted him to have that moment at WrestleMania, and they built up to it so well. And then he got it, and I was like, okay, they shouldn't have those belts for too long. And now here we are 2 months later, and I feel like I feel vindicated for the people who were debating me going into WrestleMania that, oh, it's time. It's time to split the tag titles again and have belts on Raw and belts on SmackDown. How's that working out? Not working out too well. They should have kept those belts together. But it hit me after the fact. I'm sitting here going, oh, I hope AOP wins. Just get these belts off these two. And then I realized we still got the Creeds. The Creeds are going to get those titles. I mean, I think if Triple H makes any other move, he's crazy. So the Creeds, though, I think they have to first link up with Gable and go heel before that can happen. So I am hopeful that is going to be happening imminently. And then they can move those belts onto the Creeds and they can push them in that direction. But Gable is somebody who also, there was so much wasted time with him for so long. Shorty G and just stuff that didn't matter. He didn't matter. And he should, because he's a hell of a talent. And all these years go by, and now he's 38. He's older than Ricochet, and you look back, and I wonder how he feels about it. But I look at it, and I'm frustrated that there were so many wasted years where he could have been doing so much more. But the past is the past, right? There's nothing that we can do about it, nothing he can do about it. All he can do now is go out there and just try to hit home runs when they feed him the ball. And I feel like he's been doing that, and I do think it's a foregone conclusion that whether it happens this weekend or not, he is going to be the Intercontinental Champion. If he's not, I think that's a major fumble with this story. But I'm sure we could talk more about that if you want to get into Clash.
We're gonna get into the Clash card now. We're gonna transition into that. But I'm listening to you speak here, and it's like you alluded to earlier that Triple H has the pen. If he wanted to make Ricochet into his version of Will Ospreay, he very well could have done that now that he's the chief content officer. It's his fucking game now. He did this same thing with Chad Gable. But the thing is, after the last match with Gunther, this was around September last year, Monday Night Raw, Gable didn't really do much of anything. He was in tag team matches with Otis. He was losing to whoever the fuck they were in there, Ivar and Bronson Reed.
Yeah.
And
everybody, Nakamura. Everybody,
Nakamura.
Yeah, everybody that was in the mid card on Raw.
So it's almost as if, what happened there? What happened between September through December, and then they obviously pivoted away from Brock Lesnar and Gunther, which was the original plan. All of a sudden, they started using Gable a little bit more. What happened there? What do you surmise is the reason for focusing on Gable a little bit more? Is it because it was in a contract year, they want to make him happy, they want to keep him, or they were out of options at that point, and then they leaned on Gable because he was the only option that they had? So I guess my question is, why didn't they do it with Ricochet, and why are they doing it with Gable all of a sudden?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Why with one and not the other? I just think they didn't have any WrestleMania plans for Gable, and they were focusing on the WrestleMania card and the WrestleMania players, which probably would have been Brock and Gunther. And then once the situation with, the Vince stuff played out, we knew Brock wasn't going to be there. They made the call that Sami Zayn was going to be the guy, but we'll include Chad Gable in the story. I think they also felt they were getting probably some, feedback from the fans, and they could tell that the fans, or a lot of fans, not all the fans, wanted Gable to be involved. So they at least involved him in the story in some way. I don't know if Triple H has a softer spot in his heart for Chad Gable over Ricochet. I can't speak to why he focused on one and had a storyline direction for him and didn't have a storyline direction at that time for Ricochet. I don't think it made that much of a difference that it was Gable's contract year, because it was Ricochet's contract year. So to go to your question, why focus on one and not the other? I don't think that had anything to do with it. I just think that they had a story they wanted to tell with one, and they didn't with the other. And it looks like the one that they had a story for is staying, and the one that they didn't is leaving. And I think that may be part of why we are now in the situation that we're in.
It's interesting to think back to what happened with Gable, but we will go with Clash, and we'll start with that, being that we are discussing Gable, Sami Zayn, and the Intercontinental Championship. When will Otis turn? How will it happen? I mentioned this on my end last.
It's funny.
What
See what you
happened?
say. When will Otis turn? I had The Walking Dead on my brain for a second, so I just was thinking of it from that perspective. I was watching one of the old episodes earlier today, and so just hearing you say that, I just picture like, when will Otis turn? Like he just got bit, and we're waiting for him to turn.
Have you had the chance to watch Michonne and Rick's?
No. You know, and even the Maggie and Negan one, I only saw the first episode, and then I not that I fell out of it because I wasn't interested. I just fell out of it and never went back to it. So I have a lot of catching up to do with all the spinoffs.
That's the last one you should watch. That's the worst out of all the 3 spinoffs. It's Rick and Michonne, and then Daryl, and then surprisingly, Negan and Maggie's was the worst one, honestly.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Now just one more point on this. The Daryl one, is it true that the actual title of the show, it's like Daryl Dixon, the Book of Carol?
Yes, that's season 2, yeah.
So it's Daryl, the Book of Carol. That's like the title of the show.
Carol's coming back. Yeah.
Is she coming back?
Yeah,
okay. Because I thought she was originally supposed to be part of it, but didn't want to move to Europe, which is I think where they were filming it, and then they took her out of the show.
Yep. Yeah, it's happening in France, I believe, or Paris. Yeah, Paris.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool that she'll be back.
Yeah.
All right. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, but that Rick and Michonne one, completely, you're gonna love it. It's so OG Walking Dead that you'll instantly fall in love with it and get those vibes again. But
good, I can't wait. Maybe Otis will make an appearance.
Yeah,
he'll turn.
Well, speaking of a different Otis, when is he going to turn? How is he going to turn? I talked about this on my Monday Night Raw post show last night. I am very conflicted because, like you, Jason, I want to see Gable win the Intercontinental Championship, and I think the heat of him winning the championship in Scotland with that rabid audience is going to be tremendous. But how do we get there? Does Otis help Gable win the championship and we do the turn on Monday? Or does Sammy retain, Otis fuck up, and we get a rematch somewhere down the line? I'm very conflicted about how we go about this, but I think we both understand that Gable is going to need that Intercontinental Championship at some point or another. I just don't know where the perfect placement is for this. And you said that you have, being that you're the Hog Commissioner and you got all the fucking ideas, you got the perfect scenario as to when this should take place.
Well, yes. I don't know if it's the perfect scenario, but the scenario that I laid out when I did my predictions the other day on my show is we give Gable the win, but not the title. And the way that you go about doing that is you do the Otis turn on Saturday. Because, I mean, you watched that show last night, and it just felt like everything was setting up for Saturday. Yeah. And how many times can you tease it without giving it to people? So I think that whatever breaking point there's going to be for Otis, I think we get that on Saturday. And it causes a disqualification. And Gable wins the match, not the title. But because he won, it enables one more match. You mentioned the heat that it would get in Scotland. The reason I would do it this way, get it to Money in the Bank. Because Money in the Bank is in Canada. And I feel like if Gable were to win the title and beat Sami Zayn in Canada, that would be heat. And that would be a great place to do it. And so you look at it and go, well, how do you get another match out of it if he doesn't win the title? If he wins the match. And that's how you get that one more match, and then you pull the trigger and have him win the championship. And so that's how I would kind of lay it out. I certainly would not mind it if they wanted him to win the title on Saturday. And I think it could be a case where Otis, if he's going to win, I think it's going to be a case where Otis finally breaks. And in doing so, he fucks up. And it leads to Gable winning, but not because Otis wanted him to win. And that's how he ends up with the title. If he wins the title on Saturday. But man, if they could just hold off a few more weeks and do it in Canada and have him win the title there, I think that would be heat.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. I didn't really correlate the title change with Money in the Bank being in Toronto. So that's a good call there. And it's right now it's June 11th, and Money in the Bank is July 6th. So we don't have a lot of time before we get there. They could certainly stretch this out with a heel turn for Chad Gable and the Creeds. When do we do the introduction of the new Alpha Academy? We do that on Monday, I'm assuming, right?
Well, I think Monday's a good bet. I would think Monday would be a good time for it. And then, that could be where they cut bait, or he cuts bait with Otis. He gets the Creeds behind him, and that could be what ultimately vaults him to the title. So that's a whole other question. Do you have him win the title and then we find out the Creeds are joining with him? Or do the Creeds join with him first and then he finally wins the title? See, that to me would make more sense. And you could do that on Monday, and then he goes to Money in the Bank and beats Sami Zayn.
It's crazy. I like that idea. Toronto being the downfall of Sami Zayn's title reign. I like that a lot. My question is, where do we go after all of this is over? Because I'm starting to think, this doesn't have a lot left to it. Do we get Otis challenging for the Intercontinental Championship? Do we move Gable on to something else and a brand new opponent? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs coming out of this. If we're going to align Gable with the Creeds and make him the champion, where does he go after he wins the championship?
Well, you've got to do a match with Gable and Otis. And I don't know if that's SummerSlam. I could see them running back Zayn and Gable again, but at that point, how many more times are you going to do it? Are they just going to put the belt back on Sami Zayn? I feel like once Sami Zayn loses it, if he loses it to Gable, he doesn't need to get it back. Yeah, Sami's above all this anyway. I think this story has set up Chad Gable to have a great heel run as the champion. You don't then need to put the belt back on Sami. So I think you definitely have to do Otis and Gable. What I'm wondering is, because that belt, to me, has Bron Breakker's name written all over it. Bron Breakker's a heel. Chad Gable's a heel. Chad, I think, would have to drop it to somebody else, and then Bron could beat them, whenever that is. I'm not even saying that's going to happen shortly after he wins. That could be early next year. I don't know when that plays itself out. But I think it goes Gable and then probably somebody else, and then ends up on Bron Breakker. And I think Breakker, I'm not saying he's going to break Gunther's record, but I think he can take that title and have another just fucking great run as the Intercontinental Champion, because you don't want to rush him into the world title picture. I feel like that would be too soon.
Yeah.
But you got to do Gable and Otis, and I think that's the way they built the story up. It's a worthy enough match, I think, for SummerSlam.
It's going to be interesting to see Otis get his own shine as a single like that. I've been kind of joking around. Let's bring back Tucker Knight and get Heavy Machinery back together.
Yeah, I don't know what he's up to. Him mentioning him last night.
That's why I said
it. First time I even thought of him in so long.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's been doing independence or if he's even wrestling anymore. I don't even know what he's doing.
Gable and Sheamus sounds like a natural progression after Gable and Otis. I know the whole.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say, you know what? That right there could be the answer, because Sheamus has his own unresolved story with that Intercontinental title, which he's never won, and that would be the babyface to put the belt on, and then you do Sheamus and Breakker.
Yes, at WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm listening to you speak. I'm like, who else is on that Monday Night Raw roster? And Sheamus, like, I understand everybody's like, oh, Sheamus should win the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. I'm like, I get it. Not everybody can be afforded that luxury. As long as it makes sense and it fits the story, Sheamus has been going after that title and wanting that title for years. It's the only title he's never won. And to get him to walk into WrestleMania and put over Breakker, I think we have to start thinking, all right, Sheamus is going to get his, but we need to start thinking about the future. And imagine Breakker getting put over by Sheamus at WrestleMania in a fucking banger match for the IC title. That's what I'm thinking.
Just imagine the match.
Yeah.
I'm in pain just thinking about it. The way those two would beat the holy hell out of each other. And it doesn't even have to be. You could, if you wanted to give Sheamus his moment at WrestleMania, you could do that and then, transition into the Breakker feud after that. But to me, that doesn't work as well. What are you going to do? You're going to go right from that to having him wrestle Braun and then lose?
Yeah.
So now what are we looking at? Are we looking at a year from now, getting Sheamus and Braun? So it probably would be better to get the belt on him before then and then set that up as a WrestleMania match. But there were people who were watching Raw last night who commented and said that it felt, that segment in the back with Sheamus and Drew McIntyre felt almost like a goodbye for Sheamus with McIntyre. Like, it felt to them like maybe he's next out the door. I didn't get that vibe watching it, so I don't know why people are drawing that conclusion. I just looked at it as a way, for him to make the announcement that, oh, Ludwig Kaiser is going to be in Money in the Bank. I think I'll throw my name in the hat too. But there were people who looked at that segment and that was, I don't know if you felt that way. I didn't feel that way watching it. It didn't feel to me like this is our last time doing a segment together on TV.
I don't get the sense that Sheamus is leaving
No.
at all. I mean, I don't know why he would want to go to the other side when
Well,
that's a
did.
big career. I mean, that's a big career thing that you would want to accomplish before you hang up your career. I mean, how many people can attest to winning every single title that the WWE has to offer? How many?
Yeah, but if that's the one thing that's holding him back, I mean, I don't see that being. If he wanted to leave and go somewhere else like AEW, I don't think the fact that he hasn't won the Intercontinental title is going to stop him from doing that. I would like to see him win it. I think that would be a great moment, it'd be a great story if they build it up right. But no, I wouldn't discount the possibility that he could, maybe make the jump at some point. I don't know what his contract status is. I was under the impression that his deal was up and he re-signed. That's why he came back. So I don't know why people are suddenly. I just saw some people posting about it last night, and I said, "Were you watching the same segment?"
What would he even be called over an AEW? Can't be called Sheamus unless he owns the name to that, right?
No. Although Ricochet apparently can take the name because
Yes.
he was using it before WWE. What's his name? Stephen Farrelly, I think it's his real name. Maybe he go by his real. I don't know. The Irish Curse. Maybe they'll call him the Irish Curse.
Oh,
although
man.
that was the name of his moves, and maybe he can't call himself that.
Oh, listen, at the end of the day, I think the Intercontinental Championship title picture is very, very healthy. Even after Gunther holding it for 666 days, and he basically did everything with that title. We got Gunther, we got Sammy, we got Dragunov, potentially Breakker. We have Kaiser coming along. That could be, if Sheamus does take the title from Gable, that's a natural built-in opponent right there that they're telling a story with right now. So we got a lot of creative direction that they could go with. As far as the Intercontinental Championship is concerned, but coming out of Saturday,
wait, I got it. Seamus.
Seamus.
Well, sometimes like when he first debuted, some people called him Sheamus, but they spelled it Seamus. So maybe if they spell it differently and they say it a little bit differently, he could be Seamus.
No, thank you.
It'd be a terrible thing. I'm not saying I would do it. You want to find a little way around it, though.
Seamus versus Adam Copeland for the TNT title. No, nothing.
It doesn't have the same ring to it.
No.
I'm
looking forward to Sami Zayn and Chad Gable. Out of the 5 matches of the night, I think I'm looking forward to that one the most for sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops coming out of Saturday. Bayley. She is defending the WWE Women's Championship, right? Which right now is cold. Again, another holding pattern to get to Nia at SummerSlam. She's defending the title.
This Bayley thing since WrestleMania, she is ice cold. I mean,
I think it's something we have to get used to because Triple H did this in NXT too. And I don't want to make excuses because everybody thinks I'm a Triple H shill already, but he did this in NXT where he didn't really feature everybody. On a regular basis. He would feature one person, then give this one 2 or 3 weeks off, and then they come back. It seems like he's doing the same thing on the main roster, but to what extent, Jason? Is it a point where we have too many matches and too many feuds that feel like holding patterns before we get to the big conclusion of something?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. I also think it could be, this time of year, things tend to be like this.
Yeah.
While they're building to whatever the big summer shows are, which usually are Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. I think also, they have some people who are out. Charlotte is still out. They just had the draft. Tiffany Stratton she had some opportunities, but then she lost, and she's not in the world title picture right now. They're waiting for the Nia match at SummerSlam. It's going to be Bayley and Nia Jax. So in the interim, yeah, it kind of feels like we're in a bit of a holding. We just talked about this with Cody, Cody and Logan Paul. Logan Paul was not winning the WWE title. It was a match. It was a bridge to get from point A to point B. And it's not even just that, though. It just feels like she came out on SmackDown last week. And I had one person, who listens to my show who was there in the building who said, man, Bayley's music hit and she came out and like almost nobody cared. And it's sad because I was looking forward to seeing her, get that moment at WrestleMania. She got the win in the Royal Rumble. People went nuts for it. And they turned her babyface, and people bought into her as a babyface. She had a great match at WrestleMania, won the title. What has she done since? or what story has she been a part of since that has been anywhere near as engaging? Nothing.
Man,
Nothing.
you're painting the picture coming out of WrestleMania. I'm thinking back from April to now, what Bayley's done. It's like, how unimportant does she feel? Holy shit. It's like she don't even fucking work there.
The only title, I mean, honestly, if we're being honest here, I mean, the only title that was defended at WrestleMania this year that I would say since WrestleMania, have they come up with a real good story for is the Intercontinental title.
Yeah.
The U.S. title, Logan Paul hasn't done anything. The World Heavyweight title, Priest won it.
Another holding pattern, really.
Holding pattern. Has he done anything terribly?
To get to Gunther, I'm assuming.
Right. So, I mean, he hasn't done anything terribly interesting.
No.
Cody and AJ I enjoyed. Now I'm starting to feel with Cody, depending on what happens coming out of the show on Saturday and what they have lined up for Toronto, it was going to be hard for them to match that story was built up for over a year. Really, it was built up for 2 years since he came back to the company. So nothing they were going to do with Cody coming out of that huge main event this year and everybody that was involved, it was not going to compare. So that I can understand at least. But, you look at the women's world title. Unfortunately, Rhea got hurt. U.S. title, there's nothing going on there. World heavyweight title, there's really been not much going on there. Sami Zayn and the Intercontinental title. That's one of the reasons why that story, I think, has been the best thing going on Monday Night Raw.
Those tag team titles are absolutely fucking worthless, both of them.
Yeah, unfortunately. Although the SmackDown ones do look a lot better. But, yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing going on with those tag team titles. And it looks like they're going to probably break up the champions on SmackDown very soon.
Listen, man, it's not, it's not all sunshine and rainbows over in WWE like everybody pretends it is. We don't pretend that it is. There's some serious fucking problems over there. Like, there's a lot that's good. It's obviously better than it was, but I mean, cohesively, it's not where it needs to be. It's not all together yet.
No, and then it's okay to acknowledge what the problems are. Hopefully, they'll address them as we, get closer to SummerSlam.
Yeah. Bayley will be defending that title against Piper Niven, WWE Women's Championship. Piper Niven has been largely in a tag team with Chelsea Green. Haven't done much there. Piper Niven, the only reason why she's on this show, and this is not really the only aspect of why she's on the show here. There's other people here that are on the show for the same reason that Piper Niven is on the show. Alba Fire, Isla Dawn are in that tag team title match for the same reason, because this is their home country. And, it's blatantly obvious why she's there. I don't think anybody truly believes that Piper Niven's going to get a token victory over Bayley in Scotland and be the new women's champion. It's just something to give back to the talent, and it should be a fun match. And hopefully the heat from the crowd, resonates with her being from the home country there of Scotland. Outside of that, Jason, I can't find myself to give a single shit about this match, honestly.
They may have finally found an international crowd that won't sing for Bayley. Every time they go overseas, they're always for her or for Piper.
No, they're going to sing for Bayley. Everybody sings for Bayley.
Yeah, but not in Scotland when Piper Niven is challenging for the title. That would be sacrilege, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I think Bayley with that song. Everybody wants to be with Bayley. Honestly, what's the song that they want Bayley to be their girl? Everybody wants that.
Yeah. Well, Bayley's going to win the match. Yes. I don't think anybody thinks otherwise. I don't think Piper Niven thinks otherwise. She probably doesn't even know yet who's going over, but she knows. It could be a great match. I'm looking forward to her. This is a big moment for her. When was the last time she had a singles match on a pay-per-view or a big stage like this? I don't remember her ever having a singles match.
I don't think it has happened. And I mentioned the correlation. All joking aside, I mentioned the correlation of Piper Niven getting this singles match. Triple H, for all the wrongs that we see with the product, one of the things that he did right in the absence of Eric of the Viking Raiders going away with a nasty injury, and Ivar, who's unfortunately now out. I loved when he was doing his singles run. The way he treated Ivar in that singles run away from Eric, I could see the same thing happening with Piper Niven. Piper Niven's got that presence about her. She cut a great promo on SmackDown. I could see her going out there and having singles matches and really kind of solidifying herself in the division like Ivar did away from Eric on Monday Night Raw, being a singles competitor. I would like to see that from her. It's just she's got no equity in the company. I mean, they've largely treated her as an afterthought. They got her with Chelsea Green, who's talented in her own right, and I'd like to see her take a little bit more of a serious role, but it's been a comedy team, and it's a comedy gimmick. But do you see them coming out of this, that Piper Niven could seriously be considered a threat in that division, and maybe we get a new lease on life for her here?
No, I don't think so. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't. I mean, that would be nice. I'm not expecting it. I think that this is a big spot for her because of where the show is. And it is possible that maybe they will go Splitsville very soon. They weren't supposed to be a team. If you remember, there were a couple of different partners that Chelsea lost due to injury.
Yeah.
And she ended up with Piper Niven. It wasn't like this was the original idea that we're going to put these two together. They just ended up as a team because Chelsea had the belts all to herself because she lost her partner. So I think that's probably run its course at this point. And I think Piper Niven is a solid, hand for them to have in that women's division. But do I see her being a central figure in that division? I don't. But I think she's going to go out there and make the most of the opportunity that's been presented to her. I would love to be wrong about that, going forward. But I don't see that happening.
Bayley retains the WWE Women's Championship on Saturday. Looking forward to the crowd reaction, as always, with the hometown talent there and Piper Niven. We'll go from one ladies' match to the next. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, the women's tag team champions, defend against Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, and Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. This is for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. Again, hometown crowd here for Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and the only reason why they are in this match is because of that. They've largely been absent off of television. Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, I mean, I'm kind of over the team. They get no reaction. I do see why they paired them together, but I don't think it's working out. And we have a triple threat match here that I think Bianca and Jade Cargill are going to win and retain the championships. I don't see any reason why WWE would want to take the titles off of a team that they're branding two superheroes, basically. Plus, they get Bianca and Jade on both shows instead of just being on SmackDown, so I think that's a plus there. I don't know why you would want to take the belts off of them for that reason alone. But the thing that really got me, Jason, I questioned this last night, is they're doing this triple threat match. And honestly, I don't really give a shit about Isla Dawn and Alba Fire because they've been off television. But if you want to make them into a serious threat, or at least a threat for this match, they go into a tag team match last night, and you would think that they are the last team to be added to this triple threat match, that they need the momentum to kind of solidify themselves as, hey, man, we have a shot at winning this match. They end up in a tag team match last night on Raw, and they lose. So it's like, why would anybody come out of Monday Night Raw thinking, oh, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, they got a good shot at winning those tag team titles, and they lost last night, and have zero momentum coming into the match?
Well, I'll give you the flip side of that, which is Wrestling 101. If you win on the go-home show, that doesn't always tend to work out too well.
Yes.
So maybe to throw the scent off, you have them lose, and then they shock the world when they win. The fact that this is a triple threat match, I think there is a small chance, it's small, but I do think there is a chance that Alba Fire and Isla Dawn could win because they are in Scotland and because they don't have to pin Bianca Belair or Jade Cargill to get the win. They could easily pin Shayna Baszler, who put Alba Fire to sleep on Raw last night. So maybe Alba gets a little bit of revenge on Shayna, pins her, or they could pin Zoe, and the champions lose without being beaten. You run that match back on SmackDown next Friday, or you run that match back in Money in the Bank, you could easily get the tag belts back on Bianca and Jade, with the argument being, we didn't lose. So there is a chance if Triple H wants to give them a moment, given the location. I don't think we can totally dismiss it. I still think Bianca and Jade win, but I don't think we can totally dismiss it. And also, let me just say this, because I know there was some news about this today. That awful story about Alba's mom, who got killed. She was hit by a car. It actually happened a month ago. This is not something that happened this week or last week.
Get out of here. Really? I didn't hear this.
Yeah, about a month ago. I think her mom was visiting in Florida. I think it might have been both her parents, or two of her relatives, but her mother was there. I think they were visiting. They were in Florida. They both got struck by a car. One survived. Her mom didn't. And that happened about a month ago. And I guess there was just a report. We didn't know the details of it until today. People were seeing the news today. So no, it's not something that just happened in the last few days, but it's no less awful. I mean, it's a terrible story. I remember she posted about it on Instagram at the time. This was weeks ago. But because people were talking about it earlier, I just wanted to bring that up because I think some people think it just happened. It didn't just happen, but it's still terrible because now here she is going back home, and she's going to be able to perform in front of her family and in front of her friends. And her mom won't be there. So it's an awful situation. And I don't think we can totally dismiss the possibility that, Triple H might give them the win.
That's, hey, thoughts and prayers to her family. That's all. I didn't, that's the first time I'm hearing that. That's just terrible. I could see that now that you mention, everything kind of coming about here. My question as a follow-up is where do we go with the tag team titles if they do that, and we do get Alba Fire, Isla Dawn winning the tag team titles, only drop them back to Bianca and Jade, because it's the same thing if they do retain. Where do we go? Because at this point, Jade and Bianca would have already beaten all of the division, and there's nobody left for them in that division to defend those titles against. So what are we doing here? Are we running into a wall quickly? Or quicker than we anticipated here, which I think everybody kind of anticipated with the lack of division that there is here. What do we do with the tag team titles, or do we start kind of moving along a breakup here and get Jade and Bianca going on Splitsville?
Well, if it were me, I think you can start building to that soon. You could do that match as early as SummerSlam. I don't know what their thoughts are, if this is the sort of thing they want to hold off on for WrestleMania next year. In which case you wouldn't split them up this soon. They're starting to gel as a team. They actually have like a double team finish now they've been using. So, if they want this to carry on, for the rest of the year, they certainly could. I think if I'm right about, them losing the titles without being pinned, I think that they probably just put the belts right back on them not long after and just let them continue on this run. But we are at a point now where who's left? They were kind of teasing. It felt to me like the idea that maybe Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton might be a team. Nia's got her own thing going on with, Bayley going into SummerSlam for the women's title. Who's left? Who's left that, you've got Caden Carter and Katana Chance, and you've got maybe some other makeshift teams that they could put together. That's why I'm already thinking of SummerSlam when it comes to Bianca and Jade, because you just get to a point where, you want to feature them in something meaningful, but there's nothing meaningful, to be done with these women's tag team titles after a while. And there's only so far that you can go with them until it becomes an albatross for the two of them and it starts to drag them down.
Yeah.
So are we getting to the point around now where, it's probably time to get those belts away from them and start transitioning them maybe towards a singles match with each other, whether one turns on the other or because I don't see Bianca going heel. If anything, it would be Jade, or it's just a friendly exhibition, between two women who respect each other. And then that's how we get that first match. But that's what I would start thinking about.
So Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels type dynamic, huh?
Yeah, well, they were kind of forced into that match, I think. They were having issues, right? They were pushing and shoving and not getting along. Bianca and Jade are getting along, but yeah, basically the same concept there. And that was a great match, by the way.
That was an excellent match. That's why
King of the Ring 97. That was a great match.
Absolutely.
That was better than their WrestleMania match.
I think so. Me too. I'm thinking ahead here. Again, listening to you speak. I don't really get the sense of why we need to do Jade versus Bianca at WrestleMania either. It's just, everybody thinks everything needs to happen at WrestleMania. I get it. I understand it. I get why people go that route. But SummerSlam is gonna need a major women's match. I think that fits the bill perfectly on top of Bayley and Nia, which should be okay. I've been praising Nia's work. It's not been as bad as it was in the past. Bayley needs something of substance to get herself into.
Yeah,
If Rhea Ripley's back, we're going to get Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Keeping my fingers crossed, I think that's the perfect destination for that, because outside that, I don't know what Liv Morgan does at SummerSlam. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you need to wait until WrestleMania to do it. I agree. Not everything has to happen at WrestleMania, but if they want to keep, if the point of putting them together in this team was to keep them together long enough to where you get towards the end of the year and then there's friction, where then they drop the belts, it's a way for them to then build to a WrestleMania match. I don't know if that's what they have in mind. I don't think you have to wait that long. I don't know that I would wait that long. I don't think I would wait that long.
It's just not feasible. It's not sustainable, in my opinion. I think SummerSlam...
It's not because there's no competition in the division to keep things interesting enough between now and then. If they hold on to those belts for 6 more months, how do you
nobody's gonna 6 more months, nobody's gonna care about Bianca and Jade Cargill in a singles match. That's the thing.
That's my point. All you're doing is diminishing them the longer you keep them in a division with titles where there's no competition, no believable competition for the two of them. They're not just the team. I mean, they, like you said, they look like comic book heroes come to life. It's not just a matter of competition. You need believable competition for them, and they just don't have that.
No. Bianca Jade SummerSlam, I think, is a good destination for that to happen. I think we split them up before SummerSlam and get that match. We're looking at Bayley, Nia, Liv, and Rhea potentially if Rhea's back. I got a news article on Rhea in a little bit. Those would be the women's matches for SummerSlam. I'm thinking ahead. I think we are all in agreement here. The odds-on favorite for the women's Money in the Bank is Tiffany Stratton. I think it just fits her, and they have 12 months to plan out whatever the hell they want to do with her. You give her the Money in the Bank, and then I'm starting to think towards WrestleMania next year, if Rhea is back healthy and she gets that women's championship, I could see them going these two directions, because this is WWE, and they're going to want to get these out of the way, and I think it's just kind of time for these matches to happen when we get to WrestleMania next year. Rhea versus Bianca for the WWE Women's World Championship. And then we get Charlotte. I don't want to throw this out in there in the universe, because we all know Charlotte's coming back and she's going to be the champion before WrestleMania or around WrestleMania time. I think we get Charlotte versus Jade Cargill next year at WrestleMania.
Well, Charlotte and Jade or Charlotte and Tiffany.
I could see Charlotte and Tiffany. I would prefer that one, but you know.
You don't think that Nia Jax wins the title at SummerSlam, and then when Charlotte comes back, Charlotte takes it from Nia, queen against queen?
No, I could see that. I could see absolutely that happening. I'm just saying, I think we get Jade versus Charlotte at WrestleMania for the title, yeah.
Well, they're definitely going to do that match at some point. I mean, is she ready for that spot? You know, I mean, she's
not ready for a match against Bianca now.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, you're already talking about the possibility of her, and Charlotte would be a good opponent for her. You know, Charlotte, you know, could help guide her in a big singles match, but is she ready for that stage? I mean, or is that still, even next year at WrestleMania, is that too soon, you know, for her to excel in a spot like that?
She's on TV, man. You got to shit or get off the pot. What are we waiting for? You know,
she is. I mean, well, look, I mean, I guess she's gonna be in a singles match no matter what, but I'm just looking at it from the perspective of in a championship match. But then again, what else would she be doing if she wasn't challenging for the title? You know, if by then, let's say the thing with her and Bianca has played itself out and we get Bianca and Rhea, what would Jade be doing other than wrestling probably a Charlotte Flair?
I don't know.
Or maybe a Becky Lynch.
Could be.
Yeah, that's possible. But again, it's too early.
It's way too early. I'm thinking ahead. I like to think ahead. You know, I'm Mr. LTB over here. So we got the ladies retaining the championship, though. Jason makes a good point with Alba Fire and Isla Dawn getting the victory potentially on Saturday. Could be a great moment if it does happen, so we'll keep an eye on that. The men's matches for the two big world championships. We'll start with this. Cody Rhodes defending the WWE Championship. I hate that they call it undisputed. WWE Championship. Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles. This is not just a singles match. It's an I Quit match.
Did you hear Michael Cole's description of this match last night?
No, I didn't. No, I try and tune him and Pat McAfee out. Like at hour 3, I'm just done.
Well, first of all, Michael Cole confused Rey Mysterio with Dragon Lee on the show last night. So that's number one. Number two, when he was running down the card for Clash at the Castle and they had the graphic up for Cody and AJ, and it said, I Quit match for the WWE Championship. He said, yeah, these two were going to go at it for the title. And, you know, it's all about which man can make it back to their feet before the count of 10, if one man can't make it back to his feet by a 10 count, they lose. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, unless I'm confused here, he just described a totally different match. So I'm just assuming that he misspoke, and we are not, in fact, getting a last man standing match, but we're getting an I Quit match. So he seemed a little off last night. I'm going to chalk it up to just him misspeaking. But yeah, I heard that and I said, wait, did they change the stipulation and not tell?
No, I didn't hear that. Pat McAfee must have his brain fried by the end of the night with all the fucking hijinks he's got going on there. Holy shit.
He was on the table doing ring announcing. He actually wasn't half bad at it.
No, he wasn't bad at it at all.
No.
We got an I Quit match here. Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles. I have enjoyed what they've done. I've largely enjoyed how we got from the fake retirement to this match. Going back to what happened before the Saudi show, we got Logan Paul and Cody. I think we all know why Logan Paul and Cody was booked for that specific show. I mean, they love Logan Paul over there. It was a marketing match. They wanted to get it out there for those people, and they did it. It was a great match. It was a fantastic match. Cody and AJ Styles, though, at Backlash, everybody claimed it was one of the best WWE matches of the year. It'll probably end up being on many people's top 10 lists for sure. But a lot of people were like, well, why didn't they just run AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes back at King and Queen of the Ring? Clearly, you see why. I'm glad, Jason, that we got at least some continuity here. We got them to kind of go back to AJ here, a natural opponent in the grand scheme of Cody's early title run so far. And they did the fake retirement, which was a play on Mark Henry back in 2013. The obvious, Hall of Fame segment that was. He fake retired on John Cena, the salmon jacket. It was just so perfect. I went back and actually watched it after we seen the AJ Styles one because it was just a great moment when we physically saw that happen. And to play off that, I thought was a great idea. Mark Henry was all about it. It's great to copy yourself as long as it makes sense. And they really made this make sense. Cody has a nice aggression to him now. Everything makes sense. You could see AJ not wanting to fight from behind and not wanting to fight up the rankings again to get a championship at Cody Rhodes. He did what a heel would do. He acted like a prick, and he outsmarted the babyface champion. And now we are where we are here with this I Quit match. How do you make this out? How do you feeling about all this and how WWE went from Backlash to King and Queen of the Ring to what we're seeing now at Clash of the Castle with Cody and AJ Styles? I've quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad they're getting the rematch out of it. I was worried that they were just transitioning away from AJ and they were just moving on to the next. The problem is when I thought about who the next would be, there was no obvious answer. So I almost think they had no choice but to go back to AJ Styles because otherwise, I mean, who else do you plug in there? And I love the angle. I thought it was great. When Mark Henry did it, it was the salmon jacket. Here he had like the powder blue. And it was so clear to everybody watching, except Cody Rhodes, what was about to happen. Cody was the dumbest man in the room, and he fell for it. But I thought the angle was great. Honestly, it's one of the reasons why I was surprised that we didn't get an NXT tag team title change on Sunday, because Anderson and Gallows are with AJ. They're with the guy who's going into Scotland this weekend to challenge for the championship. I thought maybe they would want to put those belts on them, and they didn't. But I'm all for it. The first match was excellent. I thought it was great. And I'm sure this match will be no different. The fact that they added the I Quit stipulation, though, could there be hijinks? Sure. There's a chance there could be. Cody Rhodes is not saying I quit. Unless they run back the same angle they did with Rock and Mankind and they clip that recording of him from Monday or Friday saying it and play it over the PA system. He ain't saying I quit. So it just seems to me like it's going to be Cody Rhodes, winning straight up. And which begs the question then, what does Cody do at Money in the Bank? Because how do you get that third match? Once they added that stipulation, that changed things. Because I thought they could always do some sort of finish to get them to a third match with a stip at Money in the Bank. And that way, Cody's covered, right? Up until we then get to SummerSlam and maybe they do Orton or whatever the big match is going to be. If they do the match and Cody wins and AJ says I quit, how do you get that third match out of it? I mean, it's almost impossible at that point. There's no point. There's no point in doing it. So that's the only thing I haven't quite figured out here is what the game plan is for that. but I don't see any other outcome here but Cody, making him say I quit.
Yeah, it's tough. I think everybody's going to think I'm a fucking lunatic for saying this, but I think SmackDown needs to inject some life into it. This may be a controversial and hot take. I got one for the Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest match as well. I don't want to say that it's going to happen, but if you want to really inject some fucking life into this, Jason, why don't we have AJ Styles win the WWE Championship and just run the rematch back at Money in the Bank and have Cody win in some sort of extra stipulation match, steel cage, last man standing, some sort of additional stipulation.
Yeah, but
and let's shake up the system.
Yeah, but how do you work around the stipulation? It's got to be I quit. WWE, it is completely antithetical to have their top babyface give up or say the words I quit. So that means you have to come up with some kind of fuckery, for the finish to get there. And that's the thing. Like, if it was a last man standing match, like Michael Cole described last night, if it really was a last man standing match, there are ways that you can make that work. How do you do that in an I quit match?
See, this is where... What was the last I Quit match that we saw that really had a fucking heater? It was Beth Phoenix, right?
It was Finn Balor and Edge. It was Finn Balor and Edge.
That was fucking great. I love that ending.
That's the only way that I could conceivably see it, is if you put somebody else in danger and then Cody had to say the words I quit, but they just did that finish in the last I Quit match they did. They can't run the same finish back twice in a row.
Let's trot Brandy out there.
Let's not. Let's do that.
Let's trot Pharaoh out there. We got to do something, man.
Terrible. Oh, so they'll hold the dog hostage. I see. Anderson and Gallows are gonna. What are they gonna do? They're gonna hold scalding hot coffee over his head. What are they gonna do?
Who else do we got? I don't know. Who else is close to Cody? We don't got Arn out here.
You can't run the same finish twice in a row. That's the point. You're not gonna do it back to back. That's the last I Quit match they did was 2 years ago.
I don't know.
That's why it doesn't work. Like I hear you. As far as doing the quick title change, I don't hate it, but once they added that stipulation, it just makes it so much harder for me to envision how do you get there.
All right, here's a follow-up question. If we go the traditional route and Cody beats AJ and AJ says I quit, what happens next for AJ Styles? Do we see AJ get traded? I'm of the belief. I may be the only one in this realm here that Bron Breakker is going to get traded from Monday Night Raw after the actions of what he did to Ricochet. I'm thinking that he gets traded over to SmackDown and Nick Aldis is now his boss. And then we get some Baron Corbin or AJ Styles trade over to Monday Night Raw. But how about we trade Bron Breakker for AJ Styles?
Wait a minute. Did I just hear you say that there would be a trade sending Bron to SmackDown and in exchange Raw would get Baron Corbin?
No, I misspoke.
Did I just? Okay.
I'm gonna retract
you
that.
better have misspoke.
I'm gonna retract.
I hope you
that.
misspoke.
Yes, I misspoke there, Bron, because I've been advocating for Bron Breakker and Baron Corbin to be a tag team. That's what I've been advocating for.
Boy, you're 0 for 2 so far. You want to go 0 for 3?
AJ gets traded for Bron Breakker. I could see that.
I mean, I said the Wolf Dogs, they had a good thing going there for a while, but no, you're not going to go backwards now and put Bron Breakker in a team with Baron Corbin when Bron Breakker is fucking killing it on Monday Night Raw. Man, I know. Let's put him back with Baron Corbin.
Man, I'm trying to alleviate the tag team situation as well. It's like, what do we do?
You've got to focus on this. Don't worry about the tag team situation. That's for another discussion. Let's focus on this now.
What happens with AJ? Does he get traded to Monday Night Raw? Does he leave SmackDown? What happens next for him if he loses this second match to Cody Rhodes?
He goes to TNA.
That's what you're doing with him.
No, but you asked me, what do I think happens? I mean, they have a working relationship with TNA now. Maybe he's like, you know what? I can't hack it anymore. And he goes back to TNA and he has a run there. I mean, to me, once he's done with Cody, I mean, he's no longer the priority. So I don't even know that they have an idea for him or like a solid plan for him. The trade idea is one that I brought up weeks ago when it really did look like Adam Pearce was going to have no choice but to kind of ship him off because Bron's like, you can't control me. And I thought they were going to do the trade then and maybe send AJ over to Raw in exchange for Bron going to SmackDown. And that would have been an even trade, not the horrible thing that you just suggested. So that's what I thought might be happening. And then they didn't do it. Could they still do it? Yeah, I mean, they could. It's possible. I had one person write into me and say that maybe AJ will go to Raw and they'll send Gunther to SmackDown. So they could do Gunther and Cody at SummerSlam, but that just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would Adam Pearce trade away one of his best, talents? Plus, that title on SmackDown, that's gonna end up back in the Bloodline vortex. They're not gonna put that on Gunther for the next year, so I don't see that happening. You can't rule out a trade, but you were talking before about what can we do to spice things up or get people talking. Give AJ another 1 or 2 matches in TNA. Send him over there. Let him work Josh Alexander and people like that. I don't know. Other than that, I don't know what else they would be doing with AJ on SmackDown. Ship him off to Raw and find somebody of equal value, and Braun would certainly fit that bill. But do you want Braun on SmackDown if that top title is going to be pretty much locked away for the next 6 to 12 months with other people?
That's a good point. I mean, you could put him into the, because I think we all see LA Knight winning the United States Championship at some point from Logan Paul. We could do Bron Breakker and LA Knight. That's why I mentioned the Bron Breakker and Baron Corbin tag team. I'm like, what do you want? We don't want to rush him, and it would be a nice solution to give some to solidify that division and those titles. I mean, that's a badass team. I don't want to make light of it because Baron Corbin's essentially a nobody, but they did great work. It would be beneath Bron Breakker to be in that tag team, but I've been advocating for that for a few weeks now. It's not the most outlandish idea, but seeing that Bron Breakker has been kind of elevating himself, it might look to people that it might be a downgrade. But I could see why people would think that. But I'm just trying to think outside the box here to get people in their appropriate places without rushing them too far up the card.
Yeah, no, I don't like that idea at all. I think that's a very bad idea that I think would actually be a negative for Bron Breakker. I mean, they are doing everything right with him right now as a single, on his own, doing his thing. And while the Wolf Dogs were enjoyable and they gelled well and they became a good team, remember what the point of that was. The point of that was not to push Baron Corbin. The point of that was to push Bron Breakker and help elevate him in some way. And I thought that they did a fine job with that. And now Bron is where he needs to be. And so to go back to that and put them in what is kind of a dead division, it just doesn't benefit Bron. Everything should be with the idea, how do we benefit him and make him better and make him stronger and put him in the best possible position where by the time we get to WrestleMania next year, he could be fighting for the Intercontinental or the US title. He could be at that level. Him in a tag team with anybody, let alone Baron Corbin, doesn't achieve that. Because whatever is going to be going on with the tag teams in either division is a dead end. It's a dead end for him. He's better than that. So get that out of your head, roll it up in a ball, throw it in the garbage, forget about it. It's over. It's done. Maybe at some point they'll work a feud. Maybe they'll wrestle each other. But that is not what they should be doing with Bron Breakker right now. That is bad move. Not be doing that. Bad JD. Bad JD.
I can't mention Evil, and now I can't mention Bron Breakker on this show.
Right.
In this guy's presence. See?
No, Evil. No, you mentioned Bron Breakker. Corbin, you mentioned.
Corbin.
Bron Breakker.
Corbin. I can't mention Baron Corbin and Bron Breakker as a tag team. Forget about it. No more.
That's it.
It's over.
That's it.
Okay?
It's over. Forget about it. Tony D. Forget about it.
No, it's no more.
Sleeping with the fishes. That's what that idea is in the river over there. Along with what was that guy that they killed off? Remember they had 2 guys with Tony D and one got popped on a steroid test and he got let go. So they killed him off on the show.
2 dimes. Stacks and 2 dimes.
Yeah, 2 dimes. That's what it was.
Now he's rotting away in Ring of Honor. Sleeping with the fishes is factually correct.
Yes.
Damian Priest, he will defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Drew McIntyre. This should be the main event, which questions where Cody and AJ would fit on the card. I could see them opening the show and bookending the show with one championship match and then closing with the other. I could see that happening. Mm-hmm. Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight title should main event the show, being that this is Drew McIntyre's show. This is his home country. He will be in front of his friends and family. Now, the story here is, obviously, Punk ruined McIntyre's title run. He held the title for all but 5 minutes, and he's wanting to get it back. And we have not seen CM Punk in roughly about 3 weeks, 4 weeks on Monday Night Raw. Very, very ominously just absent from the show. Damian Priest battled. He put the Judgment Day on the line for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was Damian Priest saying, if you can't beat Finn Balor, then the Judgment Day will be at ringside at Clash at the Castle. If McIntyre beat Finn Balor, then the Judgment Day would be banned from ringside. Now, Jason, we are in a situation where Judgment Day is not at ringside, and this will be a straight-up one-on-one match. Or is it going to be? Because now the wild card is, where is Mr. Phil Brooks going to be coming from? Is he going to be jumping out of a bowl of haggis? Is he going to be in attendance? Is he going to be in Scotland? And will he, again, ruin Drew McIntyre's dreams of becoming the world championship in front of his hometown fans? Now, I said this is a controversial take last night. It might not be too controversial to you guys. I'm making a bold prediction here, man. I don't think Drew McIntyre walks out the World Heavyweight Champion. I think Damian Priest retains.
I don't think that's bold at all. I was going back and forth myself. My prediction was that ultimately McIntyre wins, in spite of Punk trying to interfere in the match. Then I saw last night that they said the Judgment Day is not going to be allowed at ringside. And all of a sudden I said, well, it's set up a little too well for McIntyre now, right? He got what he wanted. And he's going to be confident going into this match. It's going to be like, all right, now I got you one-on-one. I don't have to worry about your crew. That's where Punk comes into play. I feel like we're going to get a world championship change on this show. And a couple different reasons. First of all, if Bianca and Jade are going to retain in their match, and if Bayley is going to retain in hers, I cannot see Triple H having 4 Scots on the show and all 4 of them lose. I mean, that would take some fucking balls if he did that. They go to Scotland and every single one of them loses. I just can't see it. So the other ones seem to me like they're probably not going to walk out with a W. That leaves Drew. And I think that in spite of Punk, who will be there, I believe he'll be there, Drew McIntyre will win the World Heavyweight title. I don't believe Drew McIntyre will go into SummerSlam as the World Heavyweight Champion. I think that he will ultimately be screwed over by CM Punk at Money in the Bank. Because that match, if Punk, let's assume Punk is going to be medically cleared, and I hope he is, especially in light of this Rhea Ripley news, if she might not be. Hopefully Punk is ready to go for SummerSlam. That match doesn't need the World Heavyweight title. You know, I mean, it's been built up so well on its own as a grudge match, and I don't really think you need to rush CM Punk into a World Heavyweight Championship program. So I think he will ultimately find a way to screw Drew out of that title, but I do think they will give him his moment and not fuck him over 2 Clash at the Castle shows in a row. And I'm predicting a new World Heavyweight Champion.
So if McIntyre wins the championship and we go into Money in the Bank, who's Drew McIntyre defending the title against at Money in the Bank?
Damian Priest.
So we're running the rematch back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Especially because that's the whole point. If Punk gets involved and it backfires in some way, however it's going to work, and I don't know how, but if Punk is going to try to screw this man over and it doesn't work or it backfires and it kind of costs Damian Priest in a way, he'll have an excuse to go, you know what, were it not for this guy, I had you beat. And he gets his rematch at Money in the Bank and gets the belt back. You know, this time Punk is able to succeed. We go on to get McIntyre and Punk at SummerSlam. We'll get Priest defending the title against Gunther. Gunther beats Priest, and McIntyre beats Punk. Because that's only match number 1. I would not have Punk beat McIntyre in their first match. No. That would be crazy.
My problem, I get what you're saying. It makes total sense. My problem is looking at this match, I guess for this show, it's not really going to play much of a factor because he's probably going to be a babyface on Saturday. But in actuality, when we get back to the States, he's a heel. It's a heel versus heel feud. Then we get to Money in the Bank. It's going to be heel versus heel. Then we get to SummerSlam, and we're going to be looking at Priest potentially, again, as the world champion against Gunther. It's going to be heel versus heel against each other there as well. So you want to do 3 pay-per-views in a row as heel versus heel? Or does not that does not matter?
No, I mean, I think it's a fair point, but like, okay, so what's the match otherwise? Who's the babyface? Who's the babyface that you would have in that role against Gunther at SummerSlam, if not McIntyre or Priest?
I mean, we can't talk about anybody else because Gunther's getting the match.
Does CM Punk enter Money in the Bank and win Money in the Bank and cash in on Drew McIntyre at Money in the Bank and then go into SummerSlam and he defends against Gunther?
No,
I mean,
that's
that
a waste
seems
of time.
pretty. Yeah, I mean that seems ridiculous to me. But so who is that babyface then? Because it's not ideal to have 3 straight matches like that, where you're right, Priest. He's shown some babyface tendencies, but he's not a babyface. He's still a heel. McIntyre, still a heel. And Gunther is a heel as well. But then if you want to plug a babyface in there, they don't have one. You know, Seth Rollins is out. Who else is at the top of the Raw card right now? They have Sami Zayn as the Intercontinental Champion. Jey Uso. But, you know, Jey Uso... Well, we know Jey Uso is in Money in the Bank.
Or at least qualifying matches start on Monday. He will be in Money in the Bank. Yes.
He'll be, yeah, of course he'll be. Yeah. He's my early pick to win on the men's side. He's been losing so much. I almost feel like they're going to give him the briefcase just to give him something to win because he keeps.
Interesting. I'm going Finn Balor winning Money in the Bank. I could see Balor taking the Money in the Bank and making that into the issue where it costs Priest at SummerSlam and they battle over that. I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe that being the case for Damian Priest to be kicked out of Judgment Day.
Yeah, I mean, it would work for that story. I mean, that would make things a little more interesting there, but I still feel like Jey Uso is going to be the odds-on early favorite. And part of that also is the fact that you get a babyface winning on the men's side and Tiffany Stratton wins as a heel on the women's side. But we can talk about Money in the Bank in a few weeks. But that's the problem that they have right now. If you're looking for an actual babyface to be the champion going into SummerSlam,
he's the only one. Yeah,
Jey Uso would be the only person, and he'd have to win Money in the Bank and then cash in, and then he would be wrestling Gunther. And to me, I know he's over. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, he you know, they hit his music, he comes out, everyone goes crazy for him, and then the bell rings. And I'm sorry, but there's main event level performers who can go in there and have these great longer main events, especially on the big shows. And I just don't look at Jey Uso as that guy. He's super over. His music is over. His entrances, his music may be one of the few successes of the fucking Def Rebel era. Him and Jimmy. I think Jimmy's music is pretty good too. But once the bell rings, I'm sorry, there just isn't much there. I don't want to see that match.
For a third time, no.
For a third time, yeah, we already saw it in the King of the Ring most recently. So the answer is there really is no good answer to that. There is no good babyface that you could plug in there, I think, in time to get in there against Gunther for SummerSlam, unless somebody turns between now and then.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to really push the limits of Mr. Levesque and his creative. You got all these injuries, and Monday Night Raw is not at full strength. It's going to be story over everything, so they're going to have to make it interesting. But I could see where you're coming from. I could see McIntyre winning the championship only to drop it back to Priest because of Punk. Again, I'm interested. It's unpredictable. At least we're going into Saturday with a little bit of unpredictability, which is
So what you pitch basically for the Cody match is how I see things playing out with the World Heavyweight title.
Yeah. Again, that's a good problem to have. We'll see. I'm excited for the show on Saturday. I'm excited to feel the energy of Glasgow, Scotland, and
they're going to have a tall order though to succeed. Where the France crowd, man, they showed up and they showed out. It's going to be tough to top that, but if they can, man, that's going to be fucking fun to watch.
I don't think anything's going to top France, but they will certainly try. Clash of the Castle, the last time we were in Cardiff, that was great. I'm expecting the same type of energy on Saturday, so we'll see what happens on Saturday, guys.
If anything, they may be louder. Remember in Cardiff, they were in a stadium. They had 60,000 people. Here, it's a building with 10,000 people.
Yeah.
So when you're more enclosed like that, it may be a France situation where you see the cameras are shaking, the building is shaking. I mean, that was just incredible.
We got a couple other news and notes here before we get into some AEW news and notes, and then we'll wrap things up with your super chats, guys. Thank you for all of the support tonight. We got 2,200 people, so it's a slowly growing crowd tonight. So thank you guys very much.
Where are we at on the likes? Because this thing doesn't, unless I refresh the page, I'm still stuck on 70.
642 likes, guys. You should all be hitting the thumbs up, and we need at least 1,000. So if you guys want to do that for us, it's the best way to support the show. If you don't want to get involved with the super chats, That's the best way to do it because it tells YouTube, hey, guys, I like this video, and I want it to be seen in front of more people. So
yeah, it says 70. I said, that can't be right.
No, that's not right. If that was the number, then we're doing something incredibly wrong here. It's my fucking Baron Corbin comments, man. I got no more Baron Corbin.
That's it. It's all your fault, man. I told you. I told you. It's just you're so wrong there.
Hikuleo. News on Hikuleo after he wrapped up with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Dominion this past weekend. Cassidy Haynes of BodySlam.net reports that Hikuleo's final date with New Japan was June 9th at Dominion. Sources within the company suggest he is headed to WWE and likely to join his family in the current Bloodline story. Now, if you guys don't know, Hikuleo is the younger brother of current WWE superstar Tama Tonga and the son of WWE legend Haku, who was also known as Meng in WCW. It would make sense for him to be in the Bloodline story. So they are continuing to tell this Bloodline 2.0 story in the absence of Roman Reigns and Dwayne Johnson. Jason, with Hikuleo now rumored to be joining WWE, it would be a natural fit. And you and I have discussed this extensively on not only this show, but our own shows. If Hikuleo is going to join WWE, which was rumored for a few months now, and join his brother in Solo's Bloodline, that would make 4. And we are anticipating the highly just unbelievable presence of Jacob Fatu here in WWE. And we all were assuming that he'd end up joining this Bloodline 2.0 as the savage of the Bloodline, led by Solo Sikoa. Now, if we get Hikuleo over there, it makes all the sense in the world that Roman Reigns and the answer to Solo is Jacob Fatu, and it ends up being Roman, Jacob Fatu, Jimmy Uso, and Jey Uso on Roman's side, and we got Solo's Bloodline all set with Hikuleo being the 4 over there. Do you see that's where they're going now with this talk of Hikuleo joining Bloodline 2.0?
Yeah, I mean, that would be what would make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I do think that at some point, because there's been people have been talking about Zilla, and there's other people too. You know, you got to have a cutoff point.
Yeah.
Now, Hikuleo, he's a big guy. I think he's 6'8". I think he's tall. He's certainly got the size advantage over his fellow potential Bloodline members. But I think at some point you got to turn the faucet off, and you've got to work with what you got. Now, a lot of people are very excited and waiting for Jacob Fatu. We're very well aware of what he brings to the table, you know, in the ring, and I think his presence is going to inject a new life into this story. And I first proposed him ending up on the babyface side, on the kind of the Roman side of things, long before these reports were even circulating. And now, in light of this, it makes even more sense that he would end up on that side and not on Solo's crew. Although we were thinking, you know, Rock, when he comes back, Rock would kind of be that 4th guy on that side. But we have no idea when Rock is going to be back. You know, Rock may not be back until WrestleMania season. Now he may be hurt. We don't know what's going on with him. So just numbers-wise, as we approach War Games later in the year, which I never expected Rock would be part of that show anyway, you can have your 4-on-4, you know, and that could be your War Games match. You can get the kind of the OG Bloodline, and you can get Solo's Bloodline on either side and do a War Games match. But that would be it. I mean, again, you can only add so many members, because what's going to end up happening is the more people you add in a short period of time, it's going to be too much. It's like the NWO thing, where you start adding too many members and now nobody cares.
Yep.
And you can't invest enough time in these new characters and get people familiar with them before you introduce the next one. And that just doesn't benefit anybody. So if they get Hikuleo in, that's great. Jacob Fatu, we're just waiting, you know, to find out. And then it has to turn to Roman Reigns. And when is Roman going to come back? We have to stop adding new people. Because if you're just going to continue adding family members, you know how big that family is? Huge. And I know that the Tongans, I mean, they're technically not, you know, they're not blood, but they kind of consider them family. So if you factor them in there, and you have the Samoans, and it'll be never ending, I don't want to see that. But yeah, I think Jacob Fatu on the babyface side of things makes a lot of sense. He's a natural, though. I mean, I think people, if you introduce him as a heel, people are going to naturally want to cheer him after a while anyway.
No, I said this last night, or Friday rather, when I talked about the rumor of Hikuleo coming into the Bloodline. The rumor was, and WrestleVotes reported this, that if Jacob Fatu comes into the Bloodline and joins Solo, he is going to be the star and outshine every single person in that new Bloodline.
And he will.
And he will. I mean, if you guys know who he is and seen him work, he absolutely will. Now, that's one instance. If you bring him in and pair him with Roman Reigns, he's not going to outshine Roman, but Roman is going to make him into the star that everybody knows he's going to be. He's not going to outshine Roman, but Roman is going to be enough to get him to that next level, whereas if you put him with Solo Sikoa, he's going to automatically take precedent over everybody else. You don't want that because it's going to make everybody less than. He's not going to make Roman look less than. So that's, now that we talked about it and see where things are going, that's the perfect place for him.
It is, and if you think about it, because of the way we're describing him and him being on the same side with Roman, it kind of makes things a little lopsided, I guess, if you think about it, because then on the other side, you got Solo, and you've got the Gorillas of Destiny, you've got Hikuleo. On the other side, you've got Roman, and you've got Fatu, and you've got Jey Uso, who's, it's like, it's almost imbalanced in a way.
So what you're saying, it's the Yankees and the Mets.
You know, I should be angry about that comment, but it's truth, so I have to just accept it.
Listen, man, the Braves are shit too, so it's all right. I could crack some jokes on the Mets, whatever.
Well, you did lose one of your best players to injury, though. So.
Yeah, but yeah, it is definitely lopsided. So it's like going into War Games is like, oh shit, like who's the real bloodline? Clearly the one led by Roman.
Yeah. So but again, that's up to them. The onus would be on them to really just make Solo's crew out to be as vicious as they possibly can, to try to give them as much credibility as they can. But I look at it, now that I kind of lay it out like that, I look at it and go, man, it's kind of night and day. But yeah, I mean, that's how I think it'll probably end up shaking out, and that probably will end up being your War Games match. Sign
me up. Take my money. Hopefully we get some continuation of the story developing sooner rather than later. I feel like they've kind of hit a wall. It's like, oh, how much more can we put Kevin Owens through a table? How much more can Paul Heyman, boast
Paul
about?
Heyman,
he's the whole fucking storyline, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's carrying this. As long as Roman is out, it's kind of like when Brock would go away for a while and Heyman would stick around, and Heyman had to carry things, even though his guy wasn't there. He was there every week, the 1 and 21-1, and he's great at that, and there's only so much he can do. So at some point soon, we have to have that next big development, which is either, again, Fatu hits the scene or Roman finally comes back, which I certainly hope happens sooner than later.
Yes, absolutely. We got a news and note on Rhea Ripley here. Not expected back by SummerSlam. Surgery right now has not taken place, but still an option. This is coming from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, that Rhea Ripley is rehabbing her shoulder instead of opting for surgery. Rhea Ripley injured her AC joint where her collarbone and right shoulder are connected. And Meltzer is reporting that she is trying to rehab the injury instead of going for surgery. She's not scheduled to return by SummerSlam, according to Meltzer. That's on August 3rd. And surgery is still an option if physical rehabilitation doesn't get her back into in-ring shape. Now, losing Rhea Ripley was a big blow. Rhea Ripley being out is a big blow to any women's division. Then you lose Becky Lynch, who wants to take a sabbatical and do her own thing before coming back. And then Asuka's out. So you lost 3 of your biggest names on Monday Night Raw after Triple H did an admirable job of making the Monday Night Raw division look good again with some depth. Now he's got this problem. But in the absence of all these names, Jason, Liv Morgan, and I know some people have been critical of the Liv Morgan Dominic Mysterio story. I personally think it's great. I see a lot of people saying, well, Liv Morgan is not defending the championship. What type of champion is she turning into? It's all story. I said last night that I think Liv Morgan looks the best she's ever looked in the last 2 weeks with this storyline. I think she fits the bill. She's a beautiful woman. The story is there with Dominic. It's just creating some engaging and interesting television to follow along week by week. I would rather see that than Liv Morgan in a nothing feud with Io Sky or Lyra Valkyria that doesn't have any heat or any emotion. At least this is interesting. And with the development last night with the hotel room card and Finn Balor taking that hotel room key, what is he doing with it? I like the questions that we're coming up with. I like the consistency here. So Liv Morgan holding the championship. I think everybody knows, Jason, that she's just holding this championship until Rhea gets back, and then we get Rhea resuming her reign as world champion. But in the interim, I think what they're doing right now in the absence of all these 3 women is really good television.
Yeah, and it's just furthering the story for when Rhea is ready to come back. It's not like they're just doing some random story just to keep her occupied.
Yeah.
It's playing directly into Rhea Ripley's return. Every time she has, some segment with Dominic, the natural instinct is to wonder, okay, this woman is going to be murdered by Rhea Ripley, so how and when is she going to get murdered? And what's going to happen with Rhea and Dom? Is Dom going to give in to temptation, which, at some point you feel like he's got to give in to temptation. So this is episodic television. This is what they build their television shows around. The segments when they post them on social media. Have you seen some of these social media numbers for these
Yes.
Liv Morgan Dominic videos? It's in the millions, like the tens of millions. It's insane. So it's working. And they're going to continue to do it because it's working and people are into it, and it's, dealing with sex and sex sells.
Yes, I know you guys are living vicariously through Dominic Mysterio. It's okay. It's
Of
okay.
course, and he was standing around that table last night on Raw with that key card on the table. I felt like he could push the table without even using his hands. I mean, this poor guy, he's going through it every single week. And so if the story is working, you keep the story going, but you are going to get to Money in the Bank, and you are going to get to SummerSlam, and she's going to need an opponent on those shows. You could tell the story week to week on television, and it's fine that she doesn't have a match at Clash at the Castle. They got a full card already. But what does she do at Money in the Bank? What does she do at SummerSlam? Were they setting up a match last night with her and Zelina Vega? Is that going to be the match, let's say, for Money in the Bank, and she beats Zelina, and then it's time for SummerSlam? Who does she get in the ring with, if not Rhea? Who does she get in the ring with at SummerSlam? The only name I could think of, and they could build her up, she was in the finals of the Queen of the Ring, is Lyra Valkyria, who they seem to be very high on. I think she's very solid. She's had a lot of solid performances so far since being called up to the main roster.
She's good. I'd rather Lyra than Io, to be honest with you. I was going to say Io, but I would stay away from that match because Liv is not beating Io.
No, you can't do EO, and again, that's heel against heel. We may already have heel against heel for the World Heavyweight title. You don't want to do that for the women's title also. Lyra may be their best option, and that could be how they kind of get her an opponent at SummerSlam. But no, I think the story is fine. I think it's not everybody is going to be a fan of every story they tell, but there's a reason why this one is being told, because two reasons. It's working. For the obvious reasons, people are into it and they're commenting on it and they're viewing all of the segments, but it also will help further the main story whenever Rhea is finally able to come back.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's working. And I don't know where Finn Balor plays into this now with him taking the key card. Did he go visit Liv Morgan at the hotel room last night? Is there something going on there that we don't know about? I mean, is Liv Morgan... Some people were saying Liv Morgan and Finn Balor may be the new power couple in Judgment Day when they kick Damian Priest to the curb. I don't know.
That Morgan and Balor are going to be the power couple.
Yeah. I could see it.
Yeah, but you know what? That doesn't make any sense to me, because if we are to assume that Liv is not really into this guy or any of these people, she's just trying to fuck with Rhea. I mean, Balor is still technically part of the Judgment Day, but it's, Dom is her guy. So I don't know that it works as well with anybody else. The whole point is she's coming on to Dominic because she's trying to take something away from Rhea. With anybody else, does it really work?
I don't know. I maybe it's just me. I hung on to one thing that Damian Priest said last night. He said in the promo with Drew McIntyre in the Open of Raw, I don't need these guys at ringside, and I don't need them to help me win my or retain my championship. And Balor was looking at him like, I don't know if that's going to come into play or not, but I think we've seen some Easter eggs and some little tidbits about, Damian Priest and Finn Balor having some dissension there, and Priest kind of asserting his dominance, and maybe Finn Balor doesn't agree with that. I don't know. I'm just thinking ahead.
What about this? Because there were so many segments on the show last night. How many segments from the Judgment Day Clubhouse did we get about this fucking key card?
Just as much as Jericho on Dynamite.
Yeah. Tell me about it. You don't have to remind me. But Priest was part of those segments, and Priest kept saying, okay, so what's going on with this key card situation? He was bringing it up, and it was left unresolved. Now, we know the Judgment Day is banned from ringside on Saturday. Liv Morgan is not banned from ringside? Does Liv Morgan show up and play a role in some sort of distraction, and that's how Drew ends up winning the World Heavyweight title, and then Drew blames Dominic because you were supposed to take care of this problem, and now it cost me my title? Do they work it into the Judgment Day drama in that way? Is that a workaround to the stipulation?
That's a possibility. I'm not going to rule that one out.
Just putting it out there.
This guy over
saying
here.
She's technically not part of the Judgment Day, even though she's been hanging around their clubhouse, but she's not part of them. So
she's not. And
doesn't break the rules.
If WWE is smart, they'd be looking for loopholes around that stipulation last night. So I like it.
There you go.
We got a couple of AW news and notes here. Penta, he is looking at a contract that expires this summer. Meltzer is reporting that. Tony Khan indicated he was confident that Penta, even though becoming a free agent, that he would stay with the promotion. Others have said Penta was looking at buying the rights to his name to make sure he could take the gimmick to WWE if necessary. Meltzer has the belief that there are circles in the industry that are looking at Penta possibly coming in, and one of those is WWE, who's showing great interest, as they should. Penta, alongside his brother Ray Phoenix, joined AEW in 2019. They have been trios champions. They have been tag team champions. Phoenix has held the international championship. And I don't really see him going anywhere, Jason, but I would be very curious. I don't think Tony Khan's going to let him go. I think Tony's going to want to maintain that tag team and those guys. I think they're very special, those two talents. But there's just something about this that just piques my curiosity about how he would be presented in WWE and what Triple H could do with someone like that, because I know you were big on Lucha Underground. I didn't really watch Lucha Underground like you watch Lucha Underground, but when I tuned in, it was him, it was Killshot, it was a couple other guys over there that were just larger than life characters. Who was the guy in the mask?
Mil Muertes.
Mil Muertes. And Dario Cueto. Who did Dario manage? That guy.
Well, his brother. So his brother was Matanza Cueto. That was his brother.
That's who I was like.
Jeff Cobb.
This guy, yeah,
played by Jeff Cobb.
Fucking awesome. So I don't have as much in Lucha Underground as you do, but Penta always stood out too. He just had that fucking cool factor about him. I would love to see what Triple H could do with him if he maintained the essence of Penta, but I don't trust that they are going to if he jumps over there. So I'm not going to say he's going to go join WWE. I think he ultimately stays with AEW. But what do you think about that?
I think if he were to go to WWE, you could pretty much just roll out the welcome mat for him into Legado del Fantasma or the LWO. They'd probably just throw him in there. So, it makes me sad that we never got the Pentagon that we got from Lucha Underground in AEW, because he's pretty much been a tag team, not exclusively, but for the most part, he's been a tag team wrestler from day one. And it's a great tag team. I mean, the Lucha Bros have been one of the top teams in that company now for 5 years. But we never got to see that version, that dark version of Penta, in singles competition, who went around breaking people's arms. I would love to think that if he were to leave and go to WWE, we can get that, but I don't think we would. And I think in AEW, he's going to have the freedom to work outside the company, and that's a big factor to a lot of people. And I feel like that would be important to him as well, to have that freedom to still be able to go work independently and in Mexico. And he's just not going to be able to do that in WWE. So I agree. I don't see him leaving. I would be surprised to find out that he was leaving. Not that he was going to let his deal expire and test out free agency, which I think would be the smart thing to do. Because why not?
Yeah.
There's going to be so much interest in him. If it could help drive up, whatever offer Tony Khan makes to him, then by all means, get as much money as you possibly can. It's just good business. Ultimately, though, I think he ends up staying where he is.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Penta's all over the place. He's in House of Glory several times a year. We love using him and seeing him in the NYC arena. He's on various independent shows. How much is that important to him? I don't know. I know I could tell you from a fan's perspective that he does not feel the same in AEW. I feel like they've taken several steps down. They don't feel as special as they were when they first started AEW. I don't know how we fix that. But I ultimately think he stays for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but part of that also is it's 5 years, and after 5 years of doing your thing, you're not going to have that same feeling. It's not going to feel exactly the same as it did at the very beginning. Could they do a better job? Could Tony Khan be doing a better job of featuring him more prominently? Absolutely. And I still feel the same way, that I would love for him to get a solid singles run. Maybe even, put a different manager. I know he's got Alex with him, Alex Abrahantes, but like in Lucha Underground for a while there, they had Vampiro with him. They were running a story, and then Vampiro was ultimately kind of with him. And I would love to see them invest in him as a single. I do worry that, in their view, maybe it's too late. Maybe they don't see him at that level or worth investing in him. He's also, I think, 40 or almost 40. So maybe they look at it from that perspective. But there is a cool factor to him that I think if he were to leave and go almost anywhere else, that would really work. I mean, the makeup and the mask, and there's just something about him, man. Even from the first time I saw him in Lucha Underground, he's just cool. And he'll work out wherever he goes. But if I'm him, I'm testing out the free agent waters. I'm going to get myself the best deal I possibly can. Ultimately, I think he stays right where he is.
Me too. Dax Harwood injured. This is something that happened as of today. I just seen this. Dax Harwood is going to be out indefinitely after hiding a lower back injury for 2 months. So Dax took to Instagram this week, and he mentioned that he apologized to Tony Khan and the AW medical staff, as he revealed over the course of the past couple of months that he's been keeping a lower back injury secret. This actually was something he posted on social media. It says, "I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know how long we're going to have to be off. Myself and Cash will not be on television for a while. I have to rest this thing up." So apparently Harwood said that a hematoma formed or developed on his lower back and grew about the size of a football, if not bigger. After finally revealing the injury to Doc Sampson, Harwood said that now they have to take a leave of absence, or he has to take a leave of absence, adding that Sampson told him the injury could be career-threatening if continued to wrestle in that state. So FTR is going to be off of AEW television for obvious reasons and good reasons here for addressing this, and AEW Medical for making the decision to take Dax off the road here. FTR, Jason, not going to be on TV. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, it's a loss for them because, FTR is one of their premier tag teams, and we just saw them in the Anarchy in the Arena match. Very dumb to be working through an injury like that and not tell the medical staff there. I know a lot of wrestlers do it, and traditionally it was just a case of, unless you physically can't, stand up, you just dealt with it, or if there was an injury, you taped it up and you went out there anyway. And I just think that's very dumb. And these days, it's just stupid because all you're doing, and it sounds like that may have been the case here, is taking something that's bad and you're making it worse. And now he could be out, like he said, it could be career threatening, which would be awful. And look, I wish him the best. I hope that it's not as serious as he described there, and he's able to come back and be either 100% or as close to 100% as he can be. But it should be a lesson to other people, like especially if it's something like a back issue or a neck issue or something like that. If it's bothering you that much, if you're in that much pain, you have to have it addressed. And the other mistake that he made was engaging with Disco Inferno. I don't know if you saw this.
I did. I didn't put it in the notes because I thought it was fucking ridiculous to even talk about.
I'm not even going to spend a lot of time on it, and I didn't see it because I don't follow either one of them. But he took the bait. He gave him exactly what he wanted. He responded to some dumb tweet that he posted, where I think Disco
basically said that AEW was an unsafe work environment, but Dax kind of came back and said, "Well, it's my fucking choice to wrestle. Every wrestlers wrestle banged up every day. So what's your fucking point?"
Well, yeah, but his point was, they didn't know about it because I hid it from them. That's the whole point of hiding an injury.
That's a whole fucking other issue, hiding it from your fucking boss. Why?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's very dumb. I mean, obviously, I wish him the best, and hopefully he'll get better, but that's fucking stupid, and you shouldn't be doing that. It's like Copeland coming from the top of the cage the way that he did, and he acknowledges, I was stupid. I fucked up. Good. I like that level of self-awareness because I don't want to see other people doing dumb shit like that. So now he's out with a broken leg. Dax is out for how long, we don't know. Ultimately, the one who, other than the talent themselves, the one who gets fucked over is Tony Khan, because now he's lost these people and he's going to have to figure out a way to, book around that, and he's not going to be able to use them. So
he doesn't
it's
put his
just very,
fucking foot down. If you're injured, fucking tell me, so I don't have this shit happening over 2 months. And now you're going to be out, instead of being out X amount of time, now you're going to be out even longer. How the fuck does Tony Khan feel about that?
Yeah, and it's not even just the Tony Khan or an AEW issue. Again, that's a wrestling issue. That's been going on since the beginning of time. But I just think it's completely foolish, and hopefully he didn't make it worse. I mean, he may have. But yeah, the whole point of like taking this as an example to just beat up on AEW and Tony Khan and everything, when this guy literally just came out and said, I hid it from him and I apologized to him for doing so. And as soon as I brought it to their attention, they told me. They didn't ask me. They told me that you're out. You're not going to be able to get back in the ring. Now, again, there are situations like the Darby Allin thing that I did. I did go in on Tony Khan and AEW for that one because Darby, in his own words, by his own admission, was so fucked up and injured going into that Double or Nothing, Anarchy in the Arena match, that the fact that he was even able to be in that match and allowed to be in that match, I thought was ridiculous. But in this case, to take this story and use it as a way to beat up on AEW, I mean, I know, why he was doing it, to get attention, and I guess to some degree it worked, but don't take the bait. It's just a good lesson for people. Yeah. Wrestlers, fans, whoever. Don't take the bait.
Yeah, it happens to us too. I do it all the time. I take the bait every now and then. It's like just hit the fucking mute button, hit the block button. It's a waste of time to even engage.
And just move on. Yeah, it's not worth it.
Now my question here with this, FTR is going to be out. They were in the Anarchy in the Arena. Darby Allin's out. He was in the Anarchy in the Arena. Bryan Danielson is going for the AEW Championship. He's going to be in the Owen, trying for a shot at the main event or at All In. He was in the Anarchy in the Arena. Where are we going with this story, Jason? Or is this story completely dead? Obviously, we now see the Acclaimed feuding with the Young Bucks. Maybe they get plugged in there to take the place of FTR and be on Team AEW. But, I mean, we went from one group of guys to now no groups of guys, and now we got the Acclaimed. It's like, where are we going with this story? Has it peaked, and is it over with? Are we finished with this?
Well, I mean, you talking about the Elite story? We're not done with the Elite story.
Can we get back to making people care about it? Is my point.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't see now. If I had to throw a name out there as somebody who could potentially be plugged into this story very easily and maybe get people to care, I could see MJF. I could see MJF being maybe the one person who, if he was to take on the Elite face to face, head on, and not be happy with how they're, conducting their business and how they're running the show, and this isn't your company or only your company, this is my company, this is our company, that sort of thing, then maybe he can get people invested in it. But I don't see a lot of good options right now. I mean, this story, and I said this at the beginning of it when it first started, that let's give it time to play out and see. They were banking everything on this program. This was going to probably light up their programming for the summer. And now here we are. When did they drop Tony Khan on his head? That was it after Dynasty? What that they shot that angle at Daly's place, or the beginning of May?
Yeah, no, it was after. I think it was after Dynasty that Wednesday.
All right, so it's only been it's been 5 or 6 weeks, but 5 or 6 weeks is enough time to look at this and go, okay, this ain't working out the way that they probably envisioned that it was going to work out. This is not lighting the world on fire. They could tell the story of the Young Bucks just being pricks and douches and abusing their power. So I don't think they're going to abandon the story, and I think they're going to try to use it to further get over Jack Perry. I think Jack Perry's going to end up with that TNT title, but they need a solid force to go up against. And, normally we get blood and guts around this time of the year. So yeah, I mean, if FTR is not available, they could always plug in the Acclaimed and put some other people on Team AEW. Failing MJF being involved in this, I don't see how they can get people to care enough to make this angle some huge success. I think they tried something. If they can get Jack Perry out of it over, at a level that he wasn't at before, maybe they can call it a mild success. But I don't know what else you can do here. I think people are just, they know what's going on, and it's not like they're tuning in and bringing in new viewers who want to see, what's going to happen next in this story. Yeah, WWE is very episodic with some of their stories. We were just talking about the Liv Morgan stuff with Dominic. And some people will tune in to find out what's going to happen in the next chapter of that story. with the Bloodline stuff when Sammy was involved, right? That was the closest thing to appointment television when it came to those segments the WWE had probably in years. Like, I'm sure there were plenty of people who were tuned in every week because they thought the segments were funny or they just wanted to see where's this going to go next. And I think that's what Tony Khan wanted this Elite story to be in AEW. And for me, it's not. Maybe it is for some people, but I don't think it's that way for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean they're going to abandon it and just stop the entire thing. I think they're going to soldier on with it. I just don't think it's not having the effect that they were hoping it would.
And I think MJF is so above what they're doing right now. I wouldn't even bother putting him in that, honestly.
I'm not saying I would either. I'm just saying if you are looking for a way to kind of light this thing on fire, that might be the only thing to do. You know, you have him pour gasoline on it, and I'm sure he can probably get some people invested in that story.
I'm sure he will.
But
Swerve too. I mean, Swerve made hints that he's got a problem with the Elite and their behavior. Maybe he gets involved too, and I don't know. I genuinely don't know where we go.
He has to be involved. If they're going to do a blood and guts match or some other Team AEW against Elite match, he has to be a part of it. Like, he wasn't a part of Anarchy in the Arena because he already had a title match on that show.
Yeah.
But I think even he made the comment in a segment on Dynamite within the last couple of weeks, like the next time you have like a Team AEW, or the next time you do something like that, you need to have the champ involved. So he'll be involved. But even Swerve, and I love Swerve, but plugging Swerve into that feud is also not going to change anything.
No.
MJF potentially, yes, that could be a game changer for that story, but that's about it. Otherwise, it's pretty much peaked at where it's going to be.
4 guys that make sense to me. MJF would make sense. He's obviously going to be going after the World Championship, I would assume. Swerve makes sense. He mentioned that he is tired of the Elite's behavior. Mm-hmm. Kenny Omega's injured. Yeah, we don't know when he's going to come back. Adam Page makes sense as well. He got booted from the Elite or suspended from the Elite. So, I mean, with everybody that's injured, I mean, how are we gonna play the story out if the key players are either doing something else or on the shelf with an injury? So it's like, all right, I don't know. We'll put the Acclaimed in there and hope people care about it. It's not going to happen that way.
No, it's not. It's not. But the Owen Hart stuff is playing out. They're going to be having the qualifying matches soon for those. And I'm looking forward to that. I love the fact that Danielson has announced, that he's going to be in there. And MJF should be in there. Samoa Joe should be in there. Yes. Let's get some more names like that.
Jay White, on that MJF, fucking
Absolutely.
Throw them all in there.
Absolutely. And I can see Danielson going all the way to the finals and then, falling there. So I'm looking forward to that. I know that there were a lot of people who were giving Tony Khan and AEW shit for what they did on Dynamite last week when they had Saraya beat Mariah May. And I don't know where you fall on that. I thought it was fine. I thought it made sense. And I thought it was fine. And I can see, now maybe I'm wrong, but I can see the logic in doing what they did. And again, before I even get into it, like when they did that match last week and you saw Saraya win the match, how did you feel about that?
I didn't really think who had a problem with it. B, Mariah May is going to be in the Owen. She's probably going to end up winning the Owen. Like, what's the problem? Well,
so the way I look at it, and this is what I don't really get with the people who are upset about this. And I understand that Saraya, we don't see her very often. It's not like she's on TV having a lot of matches, but two things. Number one, if you think about what they did when that match was over, Tony Storm was there showing concern for Mariah, but also Mina Shirakawa came out.
Yeah.
Mina and Tony are having a match at Forbidden Door, and so they were effectively fighting over who could console Mariah May, right? So that is part of the reason why they did what they did. But Mariah May is going to be in the Owen. I'm expecting Saraya is going to be in the Owen. Saraya went to Wembley Stadium last year and won the title. They gave her the title. She was at home. She was in her home country, and she became AEW Women's World Champion. She's going to be in the Owen, I'm sure. And what I'm expecting is that we may end up with a rematch in the finals between Mariah and Saraya, and it's building to Mariah getting her win back and beating Saraya to punch her ticket to Wembley to get that title match with Tony Storm. And so if I'm right, and it does play out that way, then it makes perfect sense. So again, people need to calm down and let this play out a little bit more before they, jump down Tony's throat. You jump down his throat on a lot of things, but there are just some things where they just kind of, people make a big deal about it, and it's like, well, I can see the story here. I could see the vision of where I think it's going. Why can't other people see?
That's a great point. I mean, if there's one thing about AEW that people should not be complaining about, it's that story. I think they've handled this storyline with more care than anything else on their show. So why are we complaining about that?
Quietly been maybe the best story they've been telling, frankly, this year.
I agree. Toni Storm has been treated as the top star, one of the top stars, not even just for the women, it's just the entire company. Why are we complaining about that?
Right. But again, the fact that Saraya went to Wembley and won the title last year is precisely why you want her to be in the O. And you want people to think, oh, shit, they're going to send her back to Wembley again because they're going back to the UK. And, oh, my God, she's going to win the Owen. But then Mariah beats her, and she gets the win.
Yeah, I could see Tony Khan definitely doing that. He is big on giving a hometown crowd their hero and having them go over, or at least teasing it in this case with Saraya going back to All In after winning it last year. Yeah.
It'll be hometown for Mariah.
Right, yeah. I don't. Again, listen, man, I do my fair complaining of AEW, but it's justified. But to complain about that, I don't really see a problem with what they did there. And this last thing before we get into your super chats, Charcuterie Man supplied us with false numbers in regards to AEW Collision.
Cheese platter boy.
Cheese platter man. I love a good cheese, and I love a good. Yeah, you can't. I know your problem, but
not me.
I love me some cheese. Is my kryptonite, but not as much as Charcuterie Man here. After June 1st edition of Collision, it was reported the Fashion Nationals came in at 122,000 that had tuned in for AEW Collision, which would have been an all-time low for the show. Which I looked at that number, I'm like, there's no fucking way that's even close to what the actual number is.
No.
It was later confirmed that 378,000 had tuned in. Still not anywhere near where Collision should be, but much better than what Cheeseman had reported. Now, Dave Meltzer later stated that the Fast National number had been supplied to a reporter by AEW's main competition at WWE. Oh, man. Great job there, Alfred. Taking to Twitter, Khan accused WWE of predatory business practices that put Jim Crockett Promotions and many other territories out of business. Now, this isn't the first time that Tony Khan spoke up against how WWE does business. In April 2022, Khan stated that a bot army had been created to criticize AEW. At the time, Khan suggested that this army had come from WWE, and then he orchestrated an independent study about bots on social media. So, Jason, I looked at this number, and I'm like, again, people are comparing ratings and worrying about ratings in this sense to kind of throw more dirt on how bad AEW is and what AEW isn't doing right. I get why WWE does what they do. This is not any secret, but now that it's filtering into the IWC and some people are bought out just to make AEW look bad, I don't blame Tony Khan for speaking up against this bullshit, honestly, because we complain about what they do on television, and most of it is justified. But when it comes to this type of shit, man, this is just petty behavior that makes everybody else that's engaging in this look like shit.
Just hearing you say the cheese man, and I just can't get this image out of my head. You've seen Spaceballs?
Yes.
Pizza the Hut?
Yes.
Okay. As soon as you say that, that's all I'm going to see now when I think of him. I'm going to see Pizza the fucking Hut from Spaceballs.
Oh,
and I'm just going to laugh my ass off. Yeah, look, I mean, this is WWE. It's not like they haven't done stuff like this for decades. They did it under Vince McMahon. I'm sure they're still doing it today because they're petty as fuck. Always have been, always will be. And look, when you're in competition with other companies, even though really WWE's got nothing to worry about. I mean, it's not like they're in jeopardy of being knocked off their top perch with all the money they're making these days. But this is the sort of thing that they do. And I even mentioned it a few weeks ago, the whole Pizzagate thing, with the Nick Gage Jericho match. And there was a lot of controversy around that and stories that were supposedly leaked, trying to, scare off some of AEW's sponsors. So that's, it's what they do. And it's not really surprising to me, nor is it surprising. It's very convenient that we hear about these Fast Nationals every weekend, on most weeks, and it's from the same source. But on those rare occasions where Collision or Rampage, when the overnights are actually not that terrible, we don't get them reported.
No, it's amazing how that works out.
It's radio silence. Like
Wow.
it's it must be their internet must be out or something. I don't know. It's funny how that works. And yet some people don't believe this sort of thing happens. But yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, what happens when Monday Night Raw dips below 1.5 on a Monday? Do we get that reported as some big deal? No, right? So,
well, once they go to Netflix, I don't think we'll get any reports anymore about Raw.
No.
That'll be the end of that.
Oh, who knows what Liv Morgan's going to be doing to Dominic if we get that far to Netflix? Oh, boy.
Oh, my God. Jeez. They won't need to worry about going back to the hotel room. They'll just do it right there in the Judgment Day clubhouse.
No, Netflix and chill will have a whole new meaning. It's crazy. Listen, guys, we can make fun of Tony Khan all we want, and this is WWE's been doing this since the inception of AEW, running shows the same weekend, doing international shows in the same fucking week as All In. I mean, it's up their alley to do that. Tony Khan is best to just stay away from the fucking nonsense and just do his own thing. And the reason, look, Cody Rhodes was on NXT tonight. Why was he on NXT? Apparently, the chat said that he gave JC Jane a mask, like he had his dashing mask. It's great. Did he need to do that on NXT? No. But they put him on NXT because they know tomorrow AEW is going up against the NBA Finals, and they want to have NXT beat AEW in the ratings tomorrow night. I'm not fucking stupid. They do it for a reason.
Is that really why is that the only thing he did? Was that the gift that he said he was going to do? Wow. Wow. Yeah,
he's going to dash down to NXT at the Performance Center. Great job.
The WWE champion, who's flying to Scotland to defend his title this weekend, showed up to the Performance Center at NXT tonight to give a mask to JC Jane.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, at least it was Cody Rhodes and not Sexy Red on the show tonight.
Hey, I'll take that any day of the week.
I will too.
Guys, thank you so very much for joining us on episode 52 of Tuesday Night Titans. We're going to get into your super chats right now. But first, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below and go hit the subscribe button on Jason's channel as well. I linked his channel in the title of the description or the title of the video, and it will be in the description as well. So make sure you guys click on that and go subscribe to his channel over there. Great stuff as always. He's live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, pay-per-views, you name it. He's doing it all over there. Make sure you guys go follow him on social media as well as me, JD from NY206, at Solid Monster on X. Make sure you guys go and hit that thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. We got almost 1,000. We got 854 likes.
So we have a little bit more perspective here because it didn't sound right to me that that's all that Cody would have done on the show. Apparently, he announced a battle royal for next week that will, I guess, determine the next challenger for Trick Williams that will include both NXT and TNA talent.
Oh.
So apparently that was something else that he announced. I guess he did 3 segments on the show. That makes more sense to me, at least, than him showing up just to give JC Jane a face mask.
Well, I guess that makes sense. That's interesting. A battle royal between TNA and NXT. Okay. All right. I really wasn't too pleased with Trick Williams and Ethan Page on Sunday, but I guess hopefully.
Yeah, I guess it's a mix of the talent to determine who the next challenger would be, which is at least interesting because, who from TNA will they include in it? So we'll see. Because I watched that NXT show also, and look, I mean, it's not at the level of past NXT takeover show. I think we need to stop comparing, this era of NXT to the past NXT. I mean, you're not doing yourself any favors by constantly comparing the two because that's so far in ancient history at this point. So I thought the show was okay. I thought the show was good overall, not great. But the Rascals, it was very clear to me watching that show that we're getting a Rascals reunion to take on Gallus very soon. Yeah, that much was very apparent to me.
And listen, I was going to say, they lost Bron Breakker, Tiffany Stratton, Carmelo Hayes, and Dragunov. It's going to take a little bit for them to get back on track with losing big talent like that were featured regularly on those pay-per-views. So,
yeah, and they're doing a good job, especially on the women's side, as far as some of the women that are, they're developmental. But I feel like they're not throwing them out there just on television unprepared like they were at the beginning of the 2.0 era. They were taking people that had basically no experience whatsoever and throwing them on TV. They were throwing them into the deep end of the pool, and they're doing less of that now. I feel like the talent that I've seen on NXT is still developmental talent for the most part, but they're at least prepared. They're not out there looking like they don't belong. They shouldn't have a role on the show. And then they have some great prospects on there. I look at Sol Ruka for one, and I look at Obafemi. Obafemi is a fucking beast. You know, Obafemi was showing me shades of the old Brock Lesnar when he first debuted, as far as just that raw power and strength that he has. So you could tell, even though Bron Breakker and Carmelo Hayes and Dragunov, they've moved on, you can tell where, you know, some of the next big names are coming from down there.
Yeah, for sure. They got some good talent still down there.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get into these super chats, guys. Michael Krause with the $2 super chat. Good day, JD and Jason OTS family. Congrats on TNT. Thank you, Michael. AJ Files, $2 super chat. Thanks for watching my real solo. Much love, JD.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Moretz with the 24 months. Best in the IWC. Thank you, brother. David, thank you earlier for the $100 super chat before the stream started. Always appreciate you being here, my man. Demeter Bullion, CM Dunkin' Donuts with sugar with a $7.99. Uh-oh. J Doggy, Dogga, Doodly D, and Han Solo Monster. What up, G Dogs? I have a belly button piercing that is like the Undertaker one. RVD cried and punched Triple H.
The Undertaker has a belly button piercing?
I don't know.
When have we seen the Undertaker's belly button? Isn't he always wearing something? He's always wearing like a singlet?
This is Demeter Bullion, bro. He must have seen it.
Why are you looking at the Undertaker's belly button? Might be the better question.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Thank you for your $7.99, man. I appreciate it. Beef Cheeto with a $4.99. JD, I always listen to your podcasts at the gym. I can't explain why. It just goes together so nicely. Beef, listen. I listen to Jason while I'm on the treadmill, so it's like it works. It works always, man. Rich Mulatto with a $4.99. Rhea versus Liv for custody of Dom at WrestleMania 41 in a steel cage ladder match. Book it. By the way, can everyone in the chat tell my baby mama to go to hell? Man, Rich, weren't you a couple of weeks ago complaining about or blasting your baby mama in the super chats? It's still a thing, huh? Sorry to hear that, brother. Beef Cheeto with a $9.99. Just want to give Salamonsters flowers. When Drew left the show, I got genuinely worried. But Salamonsters picked right up where he left off and then some. Such an intelligent mind. Kudos to you.
Wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Beef Cheeto. Furious Nation with the 32 months. What's up, JD and Solomon? Happy 18th anniversary to ECW One Night Stand 2006. Oh, man. One of my favorite shows of all time.
That was the night that the crowd kept throwing John Cena's shirt back at him.
Oh, yeah. Stu the Beats with the $10 super chat. Yo, always good to see two of the best in the IWC. Would love to hear y'all thoughts on Bo Dallas sending notes to the Wyatt Six and invading Nikki's house. Thought it was unique and gave the codes story. Was this today's QR code?
Yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Because last night's QR code gave a date of next Monday that doom is inevitable or something along those lines. The reckoning is coming.
Yeah, the reckoning is coming. There's a countdown clock for next Monday in, of all places, Corpus Christi, which is not always the most energetic of crowds. Hopefully they'll be more energetic than Toledo was last night.
To be fair, Corpus Christi was not that bad last time they went there. They were a little louder than normal.
No, they were better. They were better. But traditionally, their reputation, they still got some work to do.
Studa Beats, what are you talking about, brother? I'm very curious to know when they invaded Nikki's house. So I gotta see when this was. It might have been tonight. William Sanchez with a $9.99. If Drew does lose at Clash of the Castle, he's my pick to win Money in the Bank, but I hope they don't wait too late, since Gunther is more than likely winning at SummerSlam. Is that a possibility?
Anything's possible, but we're also forgetting that at the end of the month in August, there's Bash in Berlin.
Yeah.
So whether he either wins at SummerSlam or he wins there, I don't see him leaving August without that World Heavyweight title.
Fire Panda in the chat says that's an old QR code. I haven't watched all the QR codes. I'm about done. Just give me Bo Dallas, honestly. Brendan Borges with a $4.99. Do you guys remember Marcus Corvan and Elijah Burke? Do you think they were good workers, and could they have been bigger stars in WWE? I thought Elijah Burke was great. He was very charismatic, great promo.
Yeah, the Pope in TNA was also very entertaining, and Marcus Corvan was Monty Brown, right?
Yes.
In TNA.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think he had to leave the business. I think he may have had a sister or family member who passed away and had to take care of her kids. I think that was the story. He had a lot of potential. He used to pounce people into orbit. He was fun to watch. He had a ton of charisma, that guy.
Yeah.
He absolutely would have been a bigger... I don't know how far he would have gotten, but he absolutely... There was a lot of runway there for him to be a much bigger star.
Fire Panda with a 1-month membership. Thank you, brother. Greetings and salutations, brethren. Peter Pacheco with a $2 super chat. Red versus Santana, better than Cody versus Roman. Listen, why are we comparing great wrestling matches? I'm not going to sit here and say one's better over the other. Because Jason and I were on the call for Santana, and Red has got a special place in our hearts. We were there. We felt the energy. And if you didn't see it, go out and buy it because it's fucking worth it.
Yeah, I told you. I said I don't remember ever being in that venue with that level of energy as loud as it was at that show on Saturday. It was just an incredible atmosphere.
Stop sleeping on Santana is what I said. Stop sleeping on Mike Santana. You guys are going to learn your lesson sooner rather than later. Fire Panda with a $28 super chat. JD, I want your take on this. Salamonster was talking about stories in wrestling and how you don't need a year or two to tell a great story. So I ask you, what's the best short story in wrestling? That's a very good question. Put me on the spot here. I do agree you don't need 2 years to tell a story. I think it gets dragged out, and we kind of, we kind of get to a point where we know it should end, and WWE just keeps going on because this one's out, that one's out, and they want to get to a specific place, whether it's a show or a city that they're going into for said show.
I mean, whether it's the best or not, I mean, I have a personal favorite one. It was kind of short. I mean, it certainly didn't go as long as it should have. You want to go first?
No, go ahead. You go. Maybe I'll agree with what you give.
Well, it was Randy Savage and Jake Roberts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, from the wedding reception when the snake popped out of the gift box. That was after SummerSlam. They had like a little party, and then the snake popped out of the box, and then Savage and him, the snake bite. They had a match where Jake smacked Elizabeth, and Gorilla Monsoon lost his mind on commentary. You would think it would have paid it off with like a WrestleMania match, but by a couple months later, it was over. That was it. That was pretty short.
Yeah, I don't know any recent ones. Kind of sticking with the same time frame there. I'm gonna go Undertaker Yokozuna from the 1993 Survivor Series to the 1994 Royal Rumble, where Undertaker wanted the WWF Championship in a casket match. Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette outsmarted the Undertaker at his own game by having 12 guys come down and bury the Undertaker at the Royal Rumble. That was a short mini feud that lasted from Survivor Series to Royal Rumble, and then we got the casket match that happened at the 94 Survivor Series, which ended that. That was a short enough feud where I love that. I thought that was great because when I was a kid watching the Undertaker get buried by 12 fucking guys, I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? This is not right, man. What's going on? Give me my Undertaker.
But then you saw him. Remember that he rose above the arena after that, right? When the lights began to flicker, and then you saw some like a ghost. I mean, that was goofy, but I enjoyed that feud too. I actually did. I enjoyed that feud.
I thought that was great. I will not rest in peace, and he disappears into the fucking night sky.
That's it.
Jose Perez, Fire Panda, thank you. Jose Perez with a 199. Jason's face on Andre, scary. LOL. TNT for life. Keep it up. Thank you, Jose.
Yeah, Solo the Giant. I never thought I would see that, but my God, it was it's a sight to see. You can see it. It's up on our Twitter pages. I mean, again, a seamless DiBiase, this guy over here.
Listen, we got a seamless HBK and a seamless DiBiase. Listen, I'll take it.
Again, that like a perm hairdo. It just brought back bad memories for me.
Colby Parks with a $7 super chat. Hey, JD and Solo, massive fans of you. Both been a part of the OTS family since Royal Rumble 2017, and I'm going to Money in the Bank. Can I get a card and participants' prediction? Ooh, a card might be difficult, but I think participants, I think we can kind of nail down. I think, no?
Well, I mean, yeah, we can probably give you our early predictions for the matches. I mean, for me, it's Jey Uso and Tiffany Stratton. I
think I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go Balor and Stratton, but I think Jey does win it, like Jason said. Do we get 3 from Raw and 3 from SmackDown? Is that the way we're going to do this thing?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
I think that works. Michelle with the $2 Super Chat. Can Roman and Cody coexist on SmackDown as top faces? It's a good question. But when Roman comes back, Cody ain't going to be the biggest babyface in the company anymore. Certainly looking like that. The Dada and Boys podcast with the 199. Rick O'Shea and Ospreay, big enough for Wembley.
I mean, is
Yes.
it big enough for Wembley? Absolutely.
Yes.
Is that the match that Ospreay should be in? No, he should be in the main event.
Yes. I do think we get that this year if it does end up having Ricochet end up in AEW. But, again, I'm going to wait on that because we don't really know what Ospreay's going to be doing. He's wrestling Swerve at Forbidden Door. Meanwhile, the Owen's going to be taking place. Can he be in the main event at Forbidden Door and in the Owen at the same time? We don't know what's going to happen there. So, I'm going to hold judgment. Basic with a $9.99. I disagree. Ricochet could have been repackaged, maybe take some time off, come back in a meaningful feud, but Triple H has other talent he's looking to push. He could have pushed Ricochet if he wanted to. Yes. Like Jason said, Basic, I agree with that.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I say you can't let Triple H off the hook. You know, if you're a Triple H fan, I know some people aren't, but he's done a lot of good. But you can't just say that, well, okay, Ricochet, you know, he never reached the heights he should have because of one man, and that man is Vince McMahon. Well, Vince played a part in that, there's no doubt about it, but Triple H has had ample time to do something meaningful with Ricochet, and he hasn't. So he bears some of that responsibility too.
Dwayne Jackson with a $50 super chat on top of the 300 he did earlier. Thank you, Dwayne. With regards to Andrade, why did he tweet a picture of AEW Collision and tag the AEW saying old Ole days? I'm assuming he's frustrated with his booking. Doesn't he realize that he might be the problem? WWE's watching their tweets.
You know, people have been trying to dissect Andrade tweets for the last 2 years. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, like, oh, he tweeted something in Spanish, or he tweeted a picture. He must be upset with his position in AEW, and now they're doing the same thing in WWE. Is he upset? Is he frustrated? I don't know. I think he does it to just get people talking.
Honestly, guys, a lot of the IWC makes something out of nothing. It is legitimately coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Collision, and Andrade was a part of that roster. Stop overthinking it. He's just reflecting back on a year of Collision that he was a part of. It's like
every now and then I'll see something, because I don't follow these things, but you know, Andrade stopped following Charlotte, or hasn't been in photos of hers on Instagram. They must have broken up. And then a few weeks later, I see them on vacation, and he's like got his
swimming
hands
with
around
fucking
her
dolphins.
Yeah, he's got his hands on like her chest and everything. I go, I don't know. They don't seem broken up to me. I'm gonna stop listening to Twitter when it comes to this relationship stuff.
Guys, just get off social media, please. Just take a little bit of a break. It's healthy for everybody. Shinobi with the 16 months. JD, you're my guy, and it's OTS for life. But I had to say this, since you're wearing that hat and cause of the score today. Let's go Orioles. Did they lose again, Shinobi? I didn't even see. Honestly, now you got me checking my baseball app. Let me see. Oh yeah, 4-0. That's great. Great. Braves keep losing. Listen.
Doesn't feel too good, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, next time you make a crack about my Mets, motherfucker, I'm going to throw that back in your face.
Listen, I said last year that the Braves won 100 games last year and then a 7-day layoff in the playoffs, and the Phillies won the wild card, and they were the hottest team going into the World Series. I would rather not win the division this year. I'm taking that stance. Wild card it is. Drizzy Drew with the 199. Take you to out. Slide Ricochet into the Blackpool Combat Club. I can't see that.
No, he doesn't fit.
Dwayne Jackson. Somebody cut this guy off at the bar, man. Another $40 in Super Chat. Dwayne Jackson.
Damn.
With WWE having NXT, does AEW have a developmental brand or farm where they can build talent from? No, they don't. They have the Nightmare Factory.
Yeah, well, it's called Ring of Honor. That's the closest thing they have. The answer is no.
No, that's a graveyard. That's not a developmental.
Right.
They have the Nightmare Factory, but they're not really developing talent in the Nightmare Factory.
There's no official connection to the Nightmare Factory. I think Dustin has his own school separate from that. There's no affiliation. They don't have anything like that. I just talked about Tanahashi came out with his 10-point plan to try to fix New Japan, And one of the points in there, they want to work more with AEW, but I was, talking about the goal that they have to also develop a lot of their younger talent. They have a system for that. They have, there's a dojo and they send people out on excursion and stuff. AEW doesn't have that. And so one thing I think that AEW ought to consider doing is taking some of the talents that they're high on, but they are not doing anything, with or doing anything meaningful with, and send them over to Japan for a few months at a time. Let them go on excursion like they did with Jack Perry, although there were different reasons for that. But they should be doing that as opposed to just having people just sort of flounder and, just work indies? They could do that, but they don't have any sort of system or school to develop talent. They ought to make more use of that relationship with New Japan in that way. That's something New Japan does that they don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. But you guys know how I feel about this. AEW, I love AEW, don't get me wrong, but they can barely string along cohesive television. You want them to develop new talent like WWE does at the Performance Center? I don't think they have the patience for that. So, Dwayne also says, with TK signing all these free agents, at some point he's going to be forced to split the rosters with a draft, etc., Dynamite and Collision, and dissolve Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor has their version of NXT. Dwayne, I love that. I've been preaching that. I do believe that would probably benefit AEW if they split the rosters, but they want to be the alternative and doing something that WWE does. A lot of people will probably zing them for copying WWE, but in this case, I think it would work. That their roster is way too big to sustain any consistency on television. I think a split rosters between Collision and Dynamite and making them separate entities would be great. In a perfect world, I would do that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Michelle Moran with a $2 super chat is KO versus Solo and Company, a rehash of KO and Roman and Company. I guess. But right now, who else did the Bloodline have to feud with? Randy Orton's out selling his injuries from the King of the Ring, and Kevin Owens is the only one on the show that's even remotely in the same realm as the Bloodline. So why not?
Yeah, the only other big baby face would be LA Knight, and he's working with Logan Paul.
Yep. Sidro with the 21 months. Gable wins at Clash. Sammy wins Money in the Bank in Canada to go after the world title. Gable versus Otis will be at Money in the Bank. Then Gable versus Sheamus at SummerSlam. Thoughts? Sammy winning Money in the Bank. I could have been for that if he didn't win the IC title, but him working back to Gunther again to go after the World Championship, I think will be less than after what we saw at WrestleMania.
Yeah, it seems too early for him now to be going after the world title. And also, I don't think winning Money in the Bank, yes, he could always call his shot in advance, but I don't think winning Money in the Bank suits him or his character.
No, I think Sammy winning the Royal Rumble is a little bit more of a realistic option. Alucard with a $4.99. Who's a luckier guy, Dominic or Juice Robinson? Unpopular opinion, I think Jacob Fatu would be better by himself. I would put him on Raw. Well, that's not going to happen, Alucard. No. And who's luckier, Dominic or Juice? That's a very difficult question.
They're both very lucky. The way I look at it is Dominic, though, is juggling multiple ladies right now. So I'm going to go Dominic.
I am going to go Juice because he legitimately is married to Toni Storm. So he's got Toni every night. Dominic doesn't have either Rhea or Liv Morgan. So there you go.
Yeah, but his wife is no slouch. If you've seen
I have not. So I guess that's an unfair statement to make. I'm sorry.
Good for him. Dom is he's all grown up now. It must be the mustache.
Gotta be. Jacob Fatu is too good. Bloodline story is beneath him, says Alucard with an additional $1.99. He is good.
Bloodline story is the biggest story in the company. How is it beneath him?
He's not even on TV yet, man. Come on. Swazi with a $1.99. NXT is more enjoyable than AEW. Marks ruined AEW. I don't know. Jason and I don't watch NXT regularly. Listen, the streets are saying that NXT is worth watching, man. I may have to tune in.
It's not that I don't tune into NXT. I just don't watch it, from start to finish consistently and review it every week the way I used to, because my interest level in it just went way down. And interestingly, I kind of stopped reviewing it week to week, and nobody said anything. No. And in the past, when I've stopped reviewing things occasionally, people usually are like, hey, why'd you stop reviewing that? You need to get back to it. Nobody said that about NXT, and that was like, that was kind of like a eureka moment for me, like, I'm not alone, in feeling this way. But yeah, NXT, they get some things right. Shawn Michaels gets certain things right, and they got people talking. I got to give them credit, you know, with the TNA partnership and some of the stuff, the Ethan Page surprise debut. Now Cody was on the show tonight announcing some battle royal. So I appreciate the fact that they're trying some things and they're kind of cooking up some interesting things, and I will tune in for that. But I just can't sit through the entire show start to finish, week to week.
No, me neither.
It's just not the same.
Malik Wahai with a $4.99. Sorry, it couldn't be more, but I've been watching you both since I was a kid. Appreciate you both. Malik, Jason and I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malik.
Ben with a $7.99. Is it possible that Arn Anderson gets involved at Clash of the Castle? Also love the show, JD. It's always a possibility. Cody alluded that he might have some backup in the form of a manager at some point during this run. He didn't really mention names, but I'd love if Cody has a corner guy like Arn Anderson. I think it adds to his act for sure.
But gets involved. I mean, what does that mean though? As far as Clash, like gets involved in what way? Arn Anderson is going to show up and do what, a run-in? I mean, what is?
I don't know.
I don't think it fits. I'm not saying it can't work, but for Clash, I wouldn't expect it.
Joshua Lavicek with a $4.99. Much love, bros. Been at least a 9-year supporter of Solo and a year of JD. 818 represent. Joshua, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Josh.
Mr. Team Bring It, 123 with a $4.99. Have Drew walk out with the championship through the crowd like Punk did back in Chicago. Sure.
If Drew wins the title, I would expect him to celebrate amongst his people. Sure.
Blow a kiss to CM Punk? Yeah, let's do it. Dwayne with another $20 super chat. Dwayne, you are a fucking beast. Thank you, brother. I am just thinking out loud. Does WWE still own the trademark name for AWA? If they don't, why doesn't TK run a PLE with NWA, MLW, TNA and call it Super Clash or Wrestle Clash? Has TK burned any bridges with those companies?
They have the tape library. I don't know what the status of the rest of the IP would be. I don't know as far as like event titles, Wrestle Rock and stuff like that. I don't know, because they very often they will allow some of these to lapse. So I don't know if they had them originally, if they still have them. I have no idea.
Dwayne, thank you, brother. Mr. Team, bring it. 123 with a 199. Solid Monster, who do you think killed WCW?
Well, how
you haven't
long
talked
do we
about
have?
that for fucking years.
Yeah, how long do we have here? You know, I did watch the first episode, and I know the second episode aired tonight. I'll try to watch it tomorrow. It's only 4 episodes. It's a mini-series. I'd rather wait, and I want to watch the rest of the series, and then what I may do is, you know, like a review at the end and get into that. I mean, I've talked about it before, given my thoughts on the whole thing, but given the series is still airing, it's just too much to answer in one super chat.
Ali with a $5 super chat. Hey, JD and Solid Monster, I know y'all want Bron Breakker to go after the IC title, but do you see him going up against Brock Lesnar? Just saying. I don't see Lesnar coming back to television, Ali. That's just my personal take there.
I think Lesnar will be back at some point, and so if he comes back, I think we could get a Lesnar Breakker match. But if it happens, I mean, it's probably a good 2 years away.
Yeah. Mr. Team, bring it with a 199. What would your finisher be if you were a wrestler? Also a very good question. I'll mention him in a positive way where I think Jason would agree with me, because I already mentioned Baron Corbin more than I would like on this show, and I got fucking made fun of by this guy already.
You mentioned him more than you would like. You sounded like you liked it a lot. You're the one who brought it up.
Listen, the End of Days is one of the best finishes in WWE. That would be my finish.
The End of Days is one of the most protected finishers in WWE.
I love the End of Days. What would your finish be?
The Nutcracker.
Okay.
Just kick somebody in the dick. It always used to work for The Undertaker when he came back. Remember he came back in 2015? He was kicking Brock in the dick. He was kicking everybody in the dick.
Yeah, listen, it works.
But if not, let's say that I was, getting disqualified. As somebody who used to try this out on Little Bro, it works. It's very painful. Sharpshooter.
Yeah.
I know exactly how to apply it.
There you go. I mentioned Baron Corbin again. I may be in the fucking sharpshooter the next talk show. Tony Brown with a $4.99. JD, I need a tetanus shot. Just looking at sexy red. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you, bro. AVG Gamer 710. He says, hello, JD. I've been a fan since 2017. Wanted to ask, why do people have a problem with the shows that happen in Saudi Arabia? I mean, the shows weren't good before, but now they are a bit decent, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I'll let you.
Average Gamer, it's something I don't really like to talk about on my end because I stay away from the politics side of things.
But not even that. I thought, see, what I was going to say is, if you go back and watch those early shows, they were not really relevant to the day-to-day, the day-to-day, week-to-week storylines on TV. So they didn't really have any bearing on what you would see on Raw or SmackDown in a given week. They weren't important.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, that changed. I think maybe starting like 2021, that started to change. And now, I mean, they do some of these Saudi shows, and some of the cards they put together are really good, and there have been some banger shows that they've had, and they can have a direct, importance on the weekly television. So they're more relevant and important now than they used to be, but then, yes, there are political elements to it and reasons why people don't like them and don't support them and won't watch them, and they're certainly entitled to have that viewpoint. But the shows themselves just were not important, and now you really can't say that about them because they are.
It's something you're going to have to get used to, guys. There's another, 6 years of this shit, 7 years of this shit?
They're halfway in. They're only halfway into the deal. So you got at least another 5, and I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of years if we hear that they've extended that. And
don't be surprised if we get a SummerSlam over there. This is going to happen.
Or more than a SummerSlam.
Or Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, who knows?
Very possible.
Joey Jojo with a $5 super chat. Finally been able to catch one of these live. WWE building to Samantha Irvin versus Bron Breakker. No, I do not want to see that. And no, they're not going to do Samantha that dirty, bro. M Mills with a 20. No message. Thank you, M Mills.
Thank you, M Mills.
Francis Luke with a 10, a 10, a 10. I can see Ricochet versus Pentagon for the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship. It's for a prestigious World Heavyweight Championship. It's AEW. Can't sign them. Then Ring of Honor can sign them. Why do you want Ricochet on Ring of Honor? It's a dead brand, bro. Does New Japan still have the Bullet Club faction? Then why don't we ever have them a part of the Forbidden Door pay-per-view? Is their roster structure with CML? Shouldn't we get a top heel faction for Forbidden Door? That's a good question. What happened to David Finlay? I thought he was a big part of what they do over there. He's not on Forbidden Door at all?
Apparently not. I haven't heard his name mentioned in any of the rumored matches. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him. But, again, it's not just New Japan this year. They have New Japan talent, CMLL, Stardom is, Stardom does have involvement because Mina's on the show, which is great, by the way. I've become a big fan of Mina.
Oh, yeah.
She's very charismatic. Did you see the RJ City interview that she did?
I did.
Yeah, I was engrossed the entire time.
Francis, he also says when Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor and did a second show that should have been the Ring of Honor show, ROH Collision. Collision is made up of about 80% of the wrestlers you see on Ring of Honor anyway.
Turner doesn't want Ring of Honor. I mean, this is what some people forget, that that Tony Khan wanted Ring of Honor to be on TNT or TBS. If TNT and TBS said, hey, we have an interest in Ring of Honor, I guarantee you there would have been a Ring of Honor show on there already. If you're Tony Khan, you can't just go, oh, okay, well, I'll just take my existing show that I pitched as an AEW show, and I'm just going to rebrand it Ring of Honor anyway. Like, I don't think David Zaslav and his executive team would be very happy about that. They don't care about Ring of Honor because they have no reason to. So you can't just take an existing show that was promoted and meant to be an AEW branded show and make it Ring of Honor, even if you have Ring of Honor talent all over it. It doesn't work that way.
Hopefully that answers your question, Francis. Ring of Honor is dead to me. I couldn't give a single shit about what happens over there. And I think, honestly, Tony needs to move away from Ring of Honor and stop making it bleed onto AEW television. He's done a better job at that, but we still see some of it happening. Juan Castle with the 199 from Pure Curiosity. Breakker versus Wardlow. Who wins? It's a good question. I'm just going to go based on who's hotter. Breakker, yes.
Breakker. Yeah.
Francis with a 20. Have you both seen both War Games matches? The first one from Great American Bash 1987, Dusty, Nikita, Road Warriors versus the Four Horsemen, and Wrestle War, May 17, 1992, featuring Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance. I know Jason's seen them. Honestly, I was not a WCW guy, so it may be crazy to some of you. I've not watched either of those matches.
Yeah, growing up, I was not a WCW guy, but later on, I was able to go back and watch and appreciate it. I've seen both of them, although the first one, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I will tell you that the 1992 one is the best War Games match ever done. In fact, the two best War Games matches that I've ever seen in order are 92 at Wrestle War 92 and Wrestle War 91. So if you only watch one War Games match, watch the one from 92.
Done deal. Adrian Sip with a 499. JD, I'm going to be real. I never played Destiny. Is it worth getting into as a beginner? If you want to get addicted to a video game, Adrian, then Destiny is right up your alley. Because that's what I'll be doing until I get to bed tonight after the show is over. And Francis Loop with a $10 super chat. AEW does have the Nightmare Factory. That's where Julia Hart came from. Yes, the split roster, but have the Ring of Honor brand be the Collision show. Look at all the Ring of Honor champions. They can lead the show. Francis, I appreciate your generosity tonight, brother, but I think Jason gave you the right answer. That is the only answer in that situation. And yes, Julia did come from the Nightmare Factory, but I guess that's the only one that I could really think of that came from the Nightmare Factory that's still a semi-success on AEW. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's feels like slim pickings, beyond that. But again, if they were serious about developing talent, then they need to have something of their own. And that's, it's something that you have to invest in. And I don't know, if Tony Khan wants to allocate budget to that. WWE spent millions of dollars to develop the Performance Center many years ago, and it's paying off for them. They went through many years where you couldn't find very much, kind of original talent that they developed. That's when we got Black and Gold. They brought in so many independent people. But now you're starting to see the fruits of that labor with people like Bron Breakker and Trick Williams and people that had no prior experience. I think maybe Bron had a handful of independent matches before. Yeah. But these are guys that they created at the PC. And that took years. And they have spent a lot of money, and they recruit. They have these recruitment drives. They mentioned Kalani Jordan. She just became the first women's North American champion. She was at their Nashville tryouts 2 years ago. That's how she got discovered. 2 years later, she's the North American champion.
It's crazy.
AEW doesn't do anything like that because it's not a priority. But at some point, if Tony Khan wanted it to be, he's got to be willing to invest, the resources and the money into it. And I don't know if he wants to. I don't know how important that is to him, or if he's content to just sign people and, off the indies and let them continue to work indies. It's just a different way of going about it.
Adrian, thank you for the new membership. And Keyshawn Johnson with a 199 is 1992 Solo's favorite year in wrestling.
Well, it just so happens that, my favorite Royal Rumble, my favorite War Games from that year. I actually like WrestleMania 8. WrestleMania 8 is a personal favorite of mine. So yeah, I think so. I think 1992 is a great year for me, and I know it's also a very it's a year that Kevin Nash doesn't like to talk about. The summer of 92. It's an inside joke. Tells on his show. The summer of 92 is something Kevin Nash does not like to reflect back upon. I don't even know where that joke got started. It's something stupid he mentioned on his show once, and it's become a thing. The summer of 92.
1992 is a great year, man. I love the 1993 Royal Rumble. I like that whole little period between SummerSlam 92 to Royal Rumble 1993. I thought it was great, but we'll never get that back, man. We'll never get Monsoon and Heenan back, and it'll never be the same.
Yeah, but also, WrestleMania at Caesar's Palace, not the best WrestleMania.
No, it wasn't
not the worst.
It wasn't terrible, no.
No, it was not the worst. Some people say it was the worst. That's a lie. But not the best either.
Guys, thank you very much for all your support. We're about to get out of here. We had 2,400 strong in here at one point on a Tuesday night. Thank you very much. Super chats killed it. We're nearing 1,000 likes. We're 50 away from 1,000 likes. Please hit that subscribe button down below, not only on this channel, but on Jason's channel as well. Go catch him live when you can. Please follow us on social media. Everything you need is linked in the description below. And please go check out all the remaining content on my channel. I'll be live, as will Jason, tomorrow night for AEW Dynamite. I'll let you sign us off, man. What do you got?
You know what? I'll just take it back to what we were briefly talking about before on the Dax Harwood stuff, and just kind of like a general thing. I think it's good advice to live by, and we're all guilty of it at some point, but don't take the bait, from the trolls online. Nothing good ever comes out of it. It won't improve your day or your attitude at all.
No.
It'll just drag you down into the muck. Keep your head down, do your own thing, treat other people the way that you want to be treated, and that's a good way to live your life.
There you go, guys. We will see you back here next week for episode 53 of Tuesday Night Titans. Please keep it to the socials. Jason and I are very involved with House of Glory. We got Swerve Strickland coming to HOG for High Intensity at the end of July, so keep on the lookout for who his opponent will be. And spoiler, it is going to be an absolute banger. Telling you right now. So make sure you guys keep an eye on that. Follow us on the socials. Catch us live when you can. And we'll see you next week right here for episode 53 of TNT. See you guys later.